and welcome to the final Football Hipsters podcast of the 2016-17 season. I know, it's sad times, but every good thing has to come to an end. But the good news is we will be back, at least if John puts enough 50p's in the slot, we will be back anyway. So we're keeping the lights on over the summer. We're probably going to put the cat out because it's not fair to keep him locked in here, but we'll keep the lights on and we'll keep the podcast coming. This tonight is indeed the final normal podcast, and you've got one more English breakfast special to come, and you never know, John and I might squidge in a satchel after the European finals, but then that's it, that's your lot, and we will tell you at the end of the show what's coming up over the summer. But to get to the end of the show, we need to start the show. So I am your host, Chris, as you may well be aware by now, and I'm joined by, happily to say, the full crew. Good evening to John, Drew, and Joel. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, Chris.
Happy to bring minority proceedings back to the podcast.
We were missing our quota, and good to have you back, my good man. Yes, thank you for all coming back again. It's been a while since you've all been together, so we're going to wax lyrical as best we can on our big four leagues. Things have been decided this weekend. Some things we already knew, but we shall cover it all. Just before we kick into our segment, we should say, of course, we are brought to you in partnership with classicfootballshirts.co.uk. You know the drill. CFSAW10 gets you 10% off. Post us a picky. We'll share it on our Twitter feed. Right, we are going to kick off this week with a new champion crowned. We're starting in Spain. It's La Liga. Right, Joel, welcome back, first of all. I have to ask, did you get back from Hull and Tottenham safely yesterday? Because that was shots fired all over the place in that particular game.
Yeah, it was pretty depressing for me yesterday all around. So that was the start. It could have gone two ways, couldn't it? And it went awfully. So, yeah, less of that talk, I think, about Hull Spurs, because it was frightening. The goal was frightening, absolutely.
I promise to be as gentle as I can be on the other subject, but we are going to have to face it head on. So I can start nowhere but the new champions crowned. Real Madrid. Now, I was surprised that I'm sure you can tell our listeners how long it's been since they last won a La Liga crown, but with a 2-0 victory over Malaga yesterday, obviously going into this game knowing that all they had to do was potentially draw, but they went and won the game and secured the title. So how long has it been? And are they worthy champions, if you can talk about that through gritted teeth?
First answer is it's been 5 years. So the last won the title in 2012 under Mourinho. So weirdly, when you look at the quality of the squads that they've had over the last 5 years, and they've had Ronaldo scoring all those goals, that's only the second title that he's won in Spain. So it's been a while, and they've had greater success in Europe than they've had in La Liga. And obviously, Barca had won 6 out of the 8, with Atletico getting the other one. So it's been kind of domination from Barcelona. So for Madrid to win it's broken it up. You know, from a Barcelona perspective, you hope it makes and creates some bit of hunger for them to go back next season under new management and challenge again. But I think you take a step back and you take kind of your partisan side of it away. They've been the best side over the course of the season because of the top of the league. I think that probably the gap is only 3 points, and I think for as poor seasons Barcelona had, they've kept on Madrid's tail for as long as they could. But invariably, the Barcelona's inconsistency has killed them, which we'll come on to in cover Barca. But for Madrid, they've dug in at the end of the season. I think with the recurring theme with them constantly, and I think I've seen it mentioned in discussions we've had on the groups, is that they don't particularly play well. They just get the win, and they just win and win and win, and they've become kind of machine-like. And that's what it was yesterday. They needed to get a win or a draw. They went for the win, obviously, and within 2 minutes they were ahead through nobody else but Ronaldo. Malaga tried, and more Sandro, I think, his ex-Barcelona allegiance coming out, tried, but Navas was in good form, and then they wrapped it up in the second half through Benzema. So at that point, 55 minutes, it was practically won. Barcelona did the best to kind of win their game, but it was already done. Obviously now Madrid can go on and win the double. It obviously got a really tough game against Juve. It'd be hard to call that either way. But I think what's been the benefactor for Madrid over the course of the season is they've had a really strong squad. I think when you take Benzema out, you can put Morata in. Asensio's come onto the scene. Isco's played well when Bale's not been there. Bale's hardly featured, to be honest, through the course of the season. And then they've hardly used the likes of James, who's obviously going, but he's quality when he does play. And what they've also had is the players who've come in have played well. So even the likes of Nacho at the back has come in for Varane in recent weeks and done really well and even contributed a goal. So from a squad perspective, I think it's made particularly Barcelona set up and think we need to get a lot better squad-wise because the squad is probably what's won Madrid the league. I think towards the end of the season, Zidane had two sides going, one for the Champions League and one for LaLiga, and it worked, but I think that shows the strength of his squad that he's got at his disposal. I don't expect them to add much in the summer, to be honest. I think the Gay will maybe go. I think that's what they'll look to do. The talk of a striker, I don't know if they'll do that, because I think he does like Benzema. The Hazard thing won't come to anything. I think he'll stay at Chelsea. So I think for Madrid, the future is pretty bright, to be honest, and they'll keep the majority of the squad that they've got. And I don't see any major departures. No Ronaldo, no Bale. I think they'll just keep what they've got. But like I say, the table doesn't lie ever, and you've got to stick to that.
Yeah, sadly so. I know that better than anyone after yesterday. I do just want to ask you, excuse me, one quick thing before we move on to Barca. A lot of talk, obviously, in agent land, really more than anything else, about Kylian Mbappe, who, of course, we all know is Europe's next big thing. A lot of talk that Real Madrid are sniffing 100 million plus offer. If, and of course it is an if at this stage, they were to place a bid, whom of the big three, if you will, are most at threat? Or is it more likely that Alvaro Morata will exit? Because he seems to have, I don't know, he just seems to have dropped off the planet in recent weeks.
Yeah, he's been playing the second string, if you like. So when they've rested big players, Morata's come in. I would think that if Mbappe was to go to Madrid, it would be Morata who would probably go. I don't see Benzema. I try to think where Benzema could go to. I think of it the other day. Don't really see where to fit. I think Morata maybe could go to Chelsea to replace Costa if he moves on. I think that could be a fit for Conte to take Morata there. I had him at Juve. I think he had him at Juve, did he?
That's a good question, John.
Sorry? You have to repeat that.
Did Conte have Morata at...
Yes, yeah.
Oh, of course he did last season, wasn't it? I thought it was 2 seasons ago. Shows what I know.
Yeah, he was there last season. I'm trying to think, when did Conte leave? Allegri's been there 3 years now. Morata was there 1, 2... I'm going to have to double check now. They might have overlapped.
I'm questioning myself now. He was definitely there, we just don't know when.
I would suspect that of anybody, it would be Morata who'd probably make way. They've also got a young player called Mariano, who's a striker coming through as well, who looks really, really promising. So you'd think he would become as a backup striker as well. So they've just got too many in that position. So that said, if they go for Mbappe though, but if they did, I think it would be Morata who'd look to move on.
Mariano, is he the lad that scored the world in pre-season in America?
Yeah, I think he also scored in the Copa del Rey, his first.
That's right. Yes.
Lower league team, but he got a really good goal. He does look sharp. And Asensio really is probably the brightest prospect in Spain at the minute for his age at 21. I know I saw Liverpool would link with a bid for 50 million for him, but he's not going anywhere. And I think they paid 3 million for him from Mallorca, and he looks an absolute world-beater at 21. And Zidane trusts him as well, which shows he must have something about him.
Yeah, agreed. So keep your eyes on Real Madrid. I think they'll have probably quite a busy summer upcoming. I
just double-checked, sorry, the Morata thing. They just missed each other. Yeah, so Morata came in as Conte took the Italian job, yeah.
Very, very good fit for Chelsea, though. I think you know Conte better than most, John, but I would say I think that's a good fit, particularly if Diego Costa moves on, because I think if they bought Morata, they could arguably afford to keep Michy Batshuayi because they're similar types of strikers, so you could almost rotate the two, given they got Champions League to focus on as well. So, interesting. Joe, we have to rip the plaster off, I'm afraid, and I know Drew is chomping at the bit to ask you a question, so just before I unleash the Drew, Barca obviously winning on the final day. It wasn't without major incident, to say the least. 2-0 down to Eibar at one point, when it ended up winning 4-2. An outrageous goal from Messi. I've said that a few times, but this one really is just incredible piece of skill. Almost a nonchalant back heel to score. very questionable penalty. Well, one penalty that just wasn't, and one that was a bit questionable. Is it all a little bit bittersweet, or does that performance yesterday kind of sum up the season?
No, exactly right. I think that if they could have designed the game to highlight how they've played through the course of the season, that was it. So poor defending, kind of no cohesion to the play, looking vulnerable at set pieces, looking vulnerable on the break against them. And then they've got the brilliance up front, which can pull them out of any trouble or situation normally that they find themselves in. So it was a mini situation going on for the full 90 minutes of how it's been for the full year. They created loads of chances. They're always going to create chances. They just seem to have developed an arrogance to defending. I think for so long they've been so superior, but teams are getting at them now, and they just look like they're going to concede every time a team goes forward, which it's not a good thing, and it needs to change. I just think there's a malaise where they just don't seem to bother blocking shots or closing down quick enough, and teams are punishing them. That was highlighted yesterday twice, and fair play to Eibar, they were good, but the second goal where Andre Gomez, who's weirdly playing right back, probably in the cup final next week because they've not got anybody else, just lazily goes and tries to close down, and teams are going to score and teams are going to punish them. So they need to really kind of change their attitude defensively. I think it's positionally somewhat, but I also think it's attitude as well. They just need to go back to basics defensively. I don't mean basics in kicking it into the stand. I mean just the real basics of blocking shots that are there in front of them and closing their opponents down when it's needed, because that's really lacking. They were good going forward. They missed some incredible chances, but I think what was interesting for me from the outset was the crowd. One, it was really flat, so there was not really a belief from the crowd that Malaga were going to do anything against Madrid. And two, I don't know, for those who watched it, if you noticed how empty it was as well. So if they had won the league, I think they'd been celebrating in front of like 60,000. So as soon as I saw that, that did transmit to the pitch, and it was flat all around, really. Obviously, they went 2-0 down through Inui, 2 really good goals, 2 good finishes. They got back into the game through Juncker with an own goal from a Neymar shot off the post, which was really unlucky. And then that bizarre penalty decision, which on first thought, my thought was that's a penalty. The second time, obviously, it clearly wasn't. I saw a bit on the internet last night accusing Alba of diving. I don't think it was a dive as so much as he just kicked the floor. But it was never a penalty, and obviously Messi, I think, felt sympathy for Eibar and missed it. And then they got another penalty, which resulted in a Kappa getting sent off, and Messi then scored. And then obviously Messi capped it off with a great solo goal at the end, as you said. So 4-2 was positive. I think coming out of it, just from the league's perspective in terms of the refereeing, they are looking at actively pushing video referees for next season. And obviously that would not have been given yesterday in any way, shape or form, because it just wasn't. Clearly, it didn't make any difference to the course of the game, but if that was a big game and that was a decision that stood them, for any team to score in that way, it just is really unfair on the team that's being punished. I think for Barca, they can take some kind of credit for the fact that they've hung in for as long as they have done. And I think just for the course of the season, they've been pawned. To only lose the league by 3 points is kind of a positive, I think, even though I didn't think for the last month that they were going to win it, to be honest. They've had too many chances, and I think Enrique summed it up with their inconsistency. When you look at the teams that dropped points against at home, the likes of Alaves and Malaga away and Deportivo away, it's just really poor. From a supporter perspective, this season brought 2 of the best moments I've had in recent times, supporting them in the PSG game. And then they won at the Bernabeu away when Messi scored in the last minute. So that from a match standout point of view, that's been kind of 2 amazing moments. But it's just going to end with probably win the Copa del Rey on Saturday. Interestingly, I saw Iniesta say it's a game that they can't really win in because they can only lose. Because if they lose, obviously they lose, and if they don't win, then they lose. So I think they just need to get that on the board. Valverde's all but confirmed. He'll be announced on the 29th. Underwhelming appointment, I think. General feelings, it's quite underwhelming, but he may instill some basics back into the team and what it needs. I think they narrowed this focus far too much on somebody must have played for Barcelona to be the coach. Valverde only played 20 games in 1989, so it's not as if he's a legend, like a Guardiola or Enrique. So that's slightly disappointing they've gone that route, but he'll be backed and he'll be supported. The squad needs to overhaul, and it will be overhauled. They need a right full back, they need a centre half, they need a midfielder as well. So they're actively seeking players as quick as they can and get those players bedded in. But I think when you compare the squad now to the Real Madrid squad, it's the bench that has really let Barcelona down through the course of the season. And big signings such as Andre Gomez just haven't really worked. 40 million euros on him now just seems unbelievable. To be honest, and Valencia must be laughing at the fee they got for him. He may come good, but I think for this season, Barca have not had any way, shape or form 40 million quid's worth from him.
Yeah, it's not really come to fruition, has it? Those two Inui goals, by the way, almost exact replicas of each other, really smashed those home. And I suppose we should give another nod to Ibaru for the size of the club. It's been a pretty amazing season, despite finishing off with 3 straight defeats. I'm going to bring Drew in at this point. Drew, you have a question for Joel with regards to Barca?
Yeah, I mean, I think he already somewhat alluded to it, but I mean, I was curious as to what his take on where the club can go from here. You know, obviously, when they don't win the league, it's a disappointment. And with questions about the managerial appointment coming through, and what else do you think that they can do past getting another manager in to really sort of regain the title next season? What else has to happen? You've already alluded to the fact that the bench seemed to be an issue. Andre Gomes didn't come off as well as used to, but what else do you think is necessary, or is that it? Did you already go through it?
I think what they need to go back to is the possession. They are possession-based, but I think in certain games they've lost control of games, and I think under Guardiola and even in Enrique's first season, the way they would defend would be with the ball. They seem to have lost that, and too many games this season have been far too open, and they've been so easy to counter-attack against. So I think the manager's first priority has to be to restore some solidity with the ball. They're just so easy to get at now, and I think that, again, that it's down that right-hand side. Like Kris, you just said, both goals came out the right-hand side. It's just been an issue all season. You think back to the Paris game away, it was all down that side. It's just forever. The targeted Sergio Roberto is kind of a project that started off as an experiment. He did well and they stuck with it, didn't sign anybody, but now you'd think that was a mistake. They should have gone out last summer and bought an established right back. So I think that's what they have to go back to, defending with the ball and just defending better, on basics. Enrique's first season, they had the best stats for scoring from set pieces and defending and not conceding from set pieces. I think they must have the worst this season. They look so vulnerable at set pieces as well. So it's just instilling some basics, which seems ridiculous for a team such as Barcelona, but the more high-end, top class stuff that they can do moving forward with the 3 they've got in the midfield is absolutely fine. It's just the mechanics at the back. They just need to get that back, the solidity back, and then I think they'll be absolutely fine. It is disappointing. It's really disappointing, but I think a lot of people have seen this coming, and naturally, if it's the end of the cycle with Enrique, so there's always kind of an acceptance, like Guardiola's last season, that when it's the end of the cycle, he may not win a trophy, but the pressure will be really, really on come August, September for them to start well and try and get the title back. I can't see Valverde lasting longer than this next season if he doesn't win the league, to be honest.
It's going to be a tough summer for Barca to reaffirm their dominance, I guess, in Spain, especially with the Champions League to contend with as well. But as you say, Copa del Rey final to look forward to coming up. Just obviously, that's kind of the big stories at the top. Was of course the title. We know Granada have gone. We know Osasuna have gone. Sporting obviously also confirmed last week to go as well. Before we look at a couple of the games in mid-table or any other things you want to talk about, the Segunda División, we know basically 2 of the clubs coming up, don't we, at this stage?
Yeah, so Levante have absolutely cruised it. They kept the majority of the squad that got relegated, loaned a couple out so they can take them back next season, which made perfect sense. So they're up there. Girona is second. And then the rest are Getafe, Tenerife, Cadiz and Valladolid, and they'll be fighting out in the playoffs. So there's 3 more rounds left, and then it'll go into the playoffs. And obviously, it works the same as the the English playoffs, where it's 4 teams, and then they fight out and they go to a final. So it'll be between obviously those teams I've named. So you'd fancy Getafe Obviously, being relegated to be the favourite in the playoffs, but we've often seen within playoffs that which makes the playoffs exciting is that you can get a late surge into them, and there's a number of teams who can still make the playoffs, such as Oviedo, Huesca. So it's not all done yet, but Levante have absolutely steamrolled it, and fair play to them for sticking with the team. And that got relegated. I did see something on Levante, just interesting that they're going to give free season tickets for people who had a season ticket this season for next season, which is really good. So I think a lot of teams could maybe look at that to guarantee support in the lower league when they get relegated on the basis that they could get promoted back again.
Agreed. And is Oviedo a fan run? They're the fan run club, aren't they? Or they've got a lot of investment from people in the UK, I think, as well. So be quite cool to see them back. I think we'd have to adopt them if we did. So that's where we stand on there. Before we wrap up the segment, I just want to sort of give you free rein. Any other business, particularly on sort of mid-table?
Yeah, just Sociedad managed to get in the Europa League yesterday. So Bilbao losing away at Atleti meant that Sociedad needed to win or draw. And then nearly managed to screw it, to be honest, because they scored in the 96th minute through Wanmi with a header to make sure that they got the Europa League. So good for Sociedad to get back in Europe. I always think they're a really good side to watch, so I'm pleased for them because they've had a bit of a crap spell with Moyes and whatnot. So it's good for them to be back. And I think Europa League is probably their level, but obviously disappointing for Bilbao to miss out on the last day. But they did have a tough trip to Atletico Madrid. They needed to get kind of in the Europa before that, and obviously Villarreal beat Valencia 3-1 away, which is a really good result. So they've secured the Europa League spot as well. So that was the two places who were secured, and then obviously the league. So that was it really, and then the rest of the league was pretty much done, to be honest.
That game, actually, I didn't realise, just looking at it quickly, there were 2 goals in the 90th minute, so they went behind to sell to Sociedad, and then had the character to come back and get the point they needed within the same sort of minute, or as you say, 2 minutes later. So that's amazing, isn't it? And only equalised with 8 minutes to go as well. So that's fully deserved. Just very quickly, we will just run through the other results. Granada, as we know, lost, or were already down. They lost to Espanyol 2-1 away from home. Baptista and Vaz over the goals there. Pereira, who's going back to Manchester United, you'd imagine, in the summer with their goal. Gijón and Betis drawing 2-2 on the Saturday. Pereira of a different breed, scoring for Gijón, as was Carlos Carmona, sandwiching 2 Ruben Castro goals. He must be, 38 now? He's still going, bless him. Deportivo Alaves, a 1-1 draw away at Leganes. Kristicic, goal, putting Deportivo in front, equalised by Timor in the last minute. Las Palmas lost again. They literally are beyond the beach, aren't they? They really are gone for the rest of this season. Andone with 2, and Carlos Gil with the third for Deportivo. Sevilla smashing Osasuna 5-0. Vitolo scoring twice in what could be his last appearance, Joel, quickly.
Yeah, he's agreed in principle to sign for Atletico Madrid. Even with the transfer ban, he'll do what Arda Turan and Alex Vidal did, and he'll sit in the stand for 4 months until January when he can play. 40 million euros.
Wow, that is nuts. I need to touch on that with you in a second, actually, so we'll just squeeze that in. Jovetic also scoring in that game, as did Franco Vasquez twice. As Joel mentioned, Atletico Madrid winning 3-1 against Bilbao, 2 for Torres and 1 for Correa, with that man Iñaki Williams with 1 back for Bilbao. Valencia back to the usual ways, losing at home. Villarreal with a 3-1 victory. Soldado back on the score sheet, as was Trigueros, and Sansone with Nani scoring for Valencia. Big summer ahead for Valencia, you'd imagine. We've covered Vigo Sociedad, we've covered Barca Eibar, and we've covered Real Madrid Malaga. Just before I give the listeners the final table, Joel, the Atletico Madrid situation, a lot of people are asking us questions about. Obviously, the Alexandre Lacazette deal is seemingly agreed in principle, but the Lyon chairman, Jean-Michel Aulas, has come out this week and said that he's agreed to let Alex Lacazette leave, and he's agreed that Atletico Madrid can be the destination, subject to the transfer ban. So, just out of interest, what do we know at the moment? Is it likely to be upheld? What's going on as we speak?
So they've appealed to CAS, which is the usual route. They might as well do that. I don't think they're very hopeful of the appeal being successful, so the likelihood is that they won't be able to register players. Obviously, they can sign, but they can't register them until January. So if Lacazette is willing to do, like I said, what Vitolo is willing to do, then I think that will go through. But obviously, it does depend whether he's willing to sacrifice. I suppose it's only 3 or 4 months of his career. But Ada Turan and Alex Vidal did it, and they were just so unfit when they did actually play that the season was practically a write-off because they're so far behind in fitness and they can't manufacture that game time or the pace of it. So they do end up so far behind. But it depends how much he wants to move, I guess.
I'm led to believe that that's a big sticking point for him at the moment because he, of course, wants to get in the French national squad for the World Cup, and he's not made the squad recently, even playing and scoring for Lyon. So he's only just back in the squad now. And I think, as you say, to take that gamble with knowing you've only really got the best part of 4 months to kick into the squad, I'm not sure whether he'll take that gamble, but time will tell. And does that mean that the likes of Griezmann and the goalkeeper, whose name escapes me, help me out here?
Yeah,
Oblak.
Oblak, thank you. We all got it in one. Does that mean that they are more likely to stay? Because there was a lot of talk about both leaving in the summer.
Yeah. I imagine that both will stay. I think United will really try for Griezmann. I think he'll stay for 1 year in the stadium. Simeone announced yesterday on the pitch that he's staying for the fans, kind of closing ceremony, if you want to call it that, for the stadium. So I think they'll probably all stay for 1 season, see how they go, see how the new signings, if they do come in January, bed in, and give it a good go for next season, new stadium. But then I expect probably Griezmann to leave next summer now. I think he'll stay there and give it 1 more year, especially with Simeone staying as well.
Yeah, it's a big draw. If, of course, the stadium is ready by the end of next season, we shall see. But yeah, good. Okay, super stuff. I'll just read the table very quickly then. The final table for LaLiga, as we know, Real Madrid champions had 93 points from their 38 played. Barcelona second, 90. Atletico Madrid third. Sevilla fourth. Villarreal and Sociedad fifth and sixth, and into the Europa League with Bilbao seventh, Espanyol eighth, Deportivo Alaves ninth, and the impressive Eibar 10th, with Malaga 11th, Valencia in mid-table in 12th, Celta Vigo 13th, Las Palmas 14th, Real Betis 15th, and Deportivo La Coruña 16th and safe, as are Leganés in 17th. And as we said earlier, Sporting Gijón, Osasuna and Granada are through the trapdoor to the Segunda División for another season. Top scorers, you won't be surprised to know, Lionel Messi, 37 goals this season. Luis Suarez second with 29, and Cristiano Ronaldo third, which will dent the old ego of Cristiano. 25 goals for him this season. I always like to dig through these at the end of the season. Top assisters, Luis Suarez 13. Toni Kroos for Real Madrid with 12, and Neymar with 11. Interestingly, Pablo Piatti of Espanyol is up there on 10 as well. And the bad boys list, John's favourite, this one. Granada, Agbo, Nigerian centre-half, I want to say. 13 yellow cards, 2 reds. Wow. Kevin Prince Boateng, God bless him. 11 yellows, 2 reds for him. And Perez of Valencia, 14 yellows and 1 red. Notable shout-out to Amora Bieta, which I think is it the same one that was at Fulham, Joel?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Cool. He's had a lovely old time. 17 yellow cards this season. 17. Jesus, he's had a lovely old time. So, yes, there you go. There's some juicy stats. Sorry, go on, say that again.
Ramos not on there.
Ramos is... Oh, no, he's where is he? He doesn't even make the top... No, he doesn't. Not from what...
Changed man.
Yeah, not from the stats I'm looking at. No, the only notable other notable names on this list are Godin with 11 yellows and 1 red, and Ignacio Camacho, combative Malaga midfielder, 15 yellows and no reds. But no, Sergio Ramos is conspicuous by his absence. So there you go. Just for morbid curiosity, because I can't leave this alone, I'm just going to have a quick look for you, just to put you in the picture. So 28 games this season, 8 yellow cards and 1 red. There you go. Compared to last season, 9 yellow cards and 2 reds. So yeah, there you go, changed man. Who'd have thought? Well, there you go. We will, of course, be back to Joel to have a look at some questions in our Onion Bag segment. And, of course, no game to look forward to next week, other than Copa del Rey, of course. And I presume your favourites for that, Joel, Barcelona favourites to lift the trophy?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. They've got Suarez is suspended and Sergio Roberto suspended, but it shouldn't have that much of an impact, to be honest. So I think they feel it's just to get it won and get a piece of silverware for Luis Enrique's last game, obviously, and give him a bit of a send-off that way.
Yeah, absolutely. 8:30 British time on Saturday, the 27th, against Deportivo Alaves. So we shall be keeping an eye on that one. Right, okay, let's move on then. We're going to change gears to another league, and naturally, as we have Drew and Joel back, it would be rude not to have them in 1 and 2 positions. So we're off to Drew next, and we talk Germany, and a very interesting weekend for one Wolfsburg is this week's Bundesliga. Right, Drew, welcome back. You're in probably slightly better spirits than Joel for the last day of the season. And we will cover your beloved Borussia Dortmund in the Mo. But we're going to have to, as John likes to do, start at the bottom and work his way up. So I couldn't resist. Sorry, John. So let's go down to the bottom then, Drew. There was a very, very big playoff situation, to avoid a playoff, I should say, at the bottom of the Bundesliga. We knew that Darmstadt and Ingolstadt had gone coming into this weekend, but Hamburg faced Wolfsburg, and it was basically winner-take-all, depending on a section of freak other results. It's amazing to say that with a 2-1 victory, Hamburg again have survived. That clock continues to keep ticking. How is beyond me. But talk to me about Wolfsburg. Where on earth have they got themselves, or how have they got themselves into this position?
Well, I think for me, it generally, if you look back a couple of years, they finished second in the league. They won the Super Cup. It was when Kevin De Bruyne was there, and then Kevin De Bruyne leaves the club, and they never officially replace him. And then all of a sudden, results started to change from there on out. And I know it's a lot to maybe to put a couple of poor seasons on the back of one player, but I think he was that good for them, and I think the way they played with him at number 10, I think they were just another animal. They tried to bring in Julian Draxler to replace him, and that didn't really work out at all, to be honest. I think he had 2 assists in, I think it was 12 or 13 appearances before he ended up leaving the club for PSG, where he seems to be getting a little bit better. But it's just after that, and the business they've also done hasn't been poor. I think some people rated Joshua Guilavogui. Mario Gomez had a good season. He did bag 16 goals. And then you have, likes of Jeffrey Bruma, Ricardo Rodriguez, who's been there for a while. Yunus Mali came in. These are players who will give you a bit of quality. But it just wasn't enough. I just think that there's so many issues wrong from a managerial standpoint. Andreas Jonker came in as a new manager, and nothing really changed. So whether if it's, he just didn't have enough time to really get his hands into the club, which is incredibly possible. We might see a different Wolfsburg next season when he gets enough time under his belt there, barring them getting past Eintracht Braunschweig in the promotion playoff. It's a lot. Some players underperformed as well. Ricardo Rodriguez is actually leaving the club for Milan. I think you and John mentioned also. So there's that. So they have to look to replace one of the better left backs in the league. Mario Gomez is getting on an age. It's just a lot of. I think Gomez also had. I do believe he scored 16 of their 34 goals this season. So without him having a bit of a prolonged career in his own right, they could have easily been relegated without his goals. So. It's just a lot right now. I think goal scoring is a big issue. I think creatively they struggle as well, and I think that's what Drax was brought in for. And he, didn't really come off that way. And Yunus Mali is a good player, but he's not at that level yet. So I think their main issue, is for me, it's goal scoring. I think they allowed 52, which for example, Leverkusen allowed 55, but they scored 53, and that's why they were sitting 12th instead of lower down the table. So I think if they can fix the goal scoring issue, I think we might see an improved performance from them. But apart from that, it's incredible to see where they won the league in 07-08. They were the second and cup champions, a couple of years ago, and now they just avoid. They could easily go down to a Bundesliga 5 if they somehow don't turn up against what could end up being a tricky Braunschweig side. So it's incredible to see. But I think this is what I've been talking to a lot of people about lately over the last couple of weeks, is that if everyone says that the Bundesliga is very much a one club league and there's no competition past that, but when you look at it, you had Bayer Leverkusen, Wolfsburg, Mainz finished in the Europa League places this season, and they were tied on points with Wolfsburg, Gladbach. These are Schalke. These are all big clubs, not even in the top half of the table, and they're all struggling. I think it's a combination of poor performances on their part, but also I think it speaks to the strength of the league, past the clubs that are in the European places. So, and the other issue would be with Wolfsburg, it's going to be tough to see how they can spend to improve, because everyone knows that the struggles they're having with Volkswagen right now. So while that's not going to hamper the club on the pitch, it could easily hamper their ability to bring in players to solve the issues. They do have some young players at the club that they might bring in next season, so that's one thing they can look at doing, but it could be struggles for next season as well. I don't know if they do survive this season. I don't think they'll be this slow next season, but I don't see them reestablishing themselves that quick. I think it's going to be more of a long-term project moving forward for them.
So much work to do there, and you look at that squad, you just go, wow, how are they down there? But that's what momentum does for you. Just looking at the Bundesliga's vi, we know the final day has happened there, so Stuttgart are coming back, which I think is great for the league. Personally, it was a shame they went last year. Hannover 96 are also coming back. They were relegated last season, weren't they? One year down.
So they were bottom of the table last season, actually.
There you go. So 2 back. And Eintracht Braunschweig. Now, were they not the third team that went down last season as well? Or was it 2 seasons ago they left?
That was 2 seasons.
2 seasons ago. Okay. Now, I'll be honest. I'm looking at their squad. The only player that I know anything about, and this is only because I follow Sweden, is Christopher Nyman, who's a 24-year-old centre-forward who they got from Norrköping, I think it was, or Norrköping, as you're supposed to say. I'm pretty sure it was. So he's the only player I recognise. On paper, anyone that doesn't really follow German football or football in general will say, Wolfsburg will steamroll them. But will they? I mean, do you think there's a momentum thing going here? Or is there a chance for Braunschweig to upset the odds?
I think, I think that it could be. It's just, these are always pretty tricky, to be honest with you. And if you look at the last 5 outings, Braunschweig has actually won 4 or 5. Their defensive record is actually pretty solid as well, but then you can say that, well, those numbers only are indicative of their performances in Bundesliga's 5. So, but then, on paper, this should be a match that Wolfsburg win relatively comfortably, just from a quality of player standpoint. But again, it's, their backs against the wall. It's action stations for them, so they have something to play for, obviously. But because they've been so poor in the season, morale does factor in. And again, if Braunschweig can find a way to silence Mario Gomez's effectiveness, then they have every chance of getting through, because, like I said, Wolfsburg struggle for goals without him finding the back of the net. So if they can figure out a way to solve him, then they have every chance of doing what people didn't think would be possible. So it'll be quite interesting. I'll actually probably watch it, to be honest. So I think it'll be entertaining.
Yeah, certainly will be. And that comes up as it's first leg this week or next week?
Honestly, I don't remember. I'd have to look, but I would assume it's this week.
I'm just checking now. It doesn't actually tell me, which is really, really helpful. Let me just have a look at Wolfsburg's fixtures here. First game is the 25th, so that's 3 days' time?
Yeah.
And that's the home leg, followed by the return leg this time next week on the Monday, the 29th. So there you go. And as John's just notified us, John, this is a derby as well, apparently.
That's what Mr. Honigstein said. I saw him talking about it, yeah.
Ah, there you go. See, geography
I would not have known that.
Nor me. No, geography is not my strong point. So, tip my hat to Rafi for that one. But there you go. That'll be worth watching. Just a quick word on Hamburg then, Jeremy. They've done it again. Not only did they survive, but because of the results in the Bundesliga table, they actually ended up finishing in 14th. So they had Mainz below them. They actually jumped a place in the end with that victory, with Mainz losing away at Koln, who we'll come on to in a second. Hamburg, I mean, we could. It's almost like we could play the Arsenal klaxon, the Valencia klaxon, the Milan club's klaxon. It's another big summer for Hamburg, isn't it?
I mean, I'm convinced they've sold themselves to Satan at this point. I don't know how they keep it always comes down to the wire with them, and they always somehow squeak it out, But I think it's still good for the league. I know they've been struggling for a very long time now. Koresh and I were actually talking about it the other day. It's just a lot of poor investment, a lot of poor decisions when it comes to player recruitment. That's harmed them in the last couple of years. But they are a big club in Germany. They had good European pedigree, back in the 80s. They're well followed, they're well supported. So it's good for the league for them to stay, but from a footballing standpoint for the club, it's just that they have to get their act together and fast, because eventually they're not going to be able to save themselves. And I think, obviously Wolfsburg did them a bit of a favor, but I don't know. It's just for them, again, I think they also struggled with goals as well. And I think it seems to be obviously a trend, if you don't score enough, teams usually at the bottom, they leak goals, which is usually why they're there. So if they just don't score enough goals, I think their leading scorer, I want to say it was Bobby Wood with 5, but 5 and 28 is not exactly prolific. Also, Michael Gregoric had 5, and Nikolai Müller had 5 as well. So it's when your top scorers can only can't even flirt with double-digit goals in the league. I think your issues are pretty well founded in the fact that much like Wolfsburg, they also lack real creativity. I know I've mentioned before earlier this season and last season, Lewis Holtby seems to have been semi reinvigorated in more of a Santi Cazorla role. He used to be a number 10, and now he's playing deeper. I think he led the club in assists, but even still, you need more than one real creative source in any top league in Europe. And it's just, if he has an off day, where are you going to get the goals from? So I think this summer, I'll look at their business and see. I think it's going to be, it'll be hit or miss. I think if they get it right, then they'll get another season in the league. If they get it wrong, I do think they'll actually go down next season. So, and also, if memory serves, let me see one thing. I'm pretty sure Rene Adler is also leaving the club. His contract runs out. So he's been a long-time servant for them. So I don't. Then they have a goalkeeping issue to solve. And right now it looks like Christian Methenia will probably get the starting role. He did okay, but Adler in his prime was a little bit better than Methenia is, obviously, or a couple levels above that. So they have another question to answer with that as well. Will he be good enough to help the club stay up or not? So lots of questions for them in the summer also.
Yeah, so much to do. And the winning goal scorer was Gianluca Waldschmidt, lesser known 21-year-old striker. His first goal of the season coming at a crucial time. First goal for Hamburg, actually, I think, in their first team. So huge goal for him. And just look at those stats. Between the 4 designated strikers that Hamburg have, and I will designate 4 of them, 68 appearances, 7 goals this season between that. Wow. Yes, that's all I have to say about that. Yeah, okay. Coming back up to the top then. Obviously, we know Bayern are champions and fantastic. Yeah, what to do. Well done, Carlo, and all that. But we could say a word about Philipp Lahm and Xabi Alonso, which we will do in a second. But before we do, we knew RB Leipzig were, of course, qualified for the Champions League, and they secured second place with a 2-2 draw at Eintracht Frankfurt, the mighty Eagles, of course. We also knew that Hoffenheim and Borussia Dortmund were in a straight shootout for third and fourth. And it was Dortmund who claimed that spot, so you'll be delighted. Topsy-turvy 4-3 win over Bremen, whilst Hoffenheim were held by Augsburg in a 0-0 draw. So good seasons for both overall, but for your boys,
no. It's a big disappointment. The cup final will be nice, and hopefully they can find a motivation to win that and at least take something away from the season. But at the end of last season, Thomas Tuchel was talking about how he was very disappointed that Dortmund finished 10 points off Bayern in the race. This season, they finished 18 points off Bayern. That's extra regression. I think this just, and when it comes down to it, I think you could ask questions about Dortmund at the back this season. I personally ranted on a number of occasions about some of the mistakes they made in the defensive third. Another issue for me is that I think there is a massive over-reliance on Aubameyang for his goals. I think he scored 31. And the next closest to him was Marco Reus with 7 in 17 appearances. Plus, Reus was yet again missed matches through injury. So I mean, obviously that didn't help from a goal standpoint, because you imagine if he's fit for the whole season, he breaks 10 goals in the league, I think. But there's a lot of positives for the club moving forward, at least from a personnel standpoint. For me, I think there's a lot of young talent coming through. Obviously, there's the rise of Christian Pulisic. You have Ousmane Dembele came to the league and took it by storm, and for me, I think he should be in the team of the year for the league in general. Rafa Guerrero was brought in as a left back, but then found a new role as a center midfielder, and I think he adapted quite well. There's still Julian Weigl, obviously, so I think the pieces are there, but I don't necessarily know if Tuchel is going to be the one to really bring the club forward. That's what has been expected, but I think he, on so many occasions this season, can be criticized for over tinkering with things from a tactical level, and sometimes I think he over rotates the squad as well. I know he had to worry about European commitments, obviously, but just there's on a number of occasions, inexplicably this season in league matches, he would rotate the squad for no apparent reason, and a lot of times it bit us, and then they didn't get the full 3 points. There was a lot of drop points and a lot of matches that ended up as draws, and I think that's one of the issues that that has to be addressed, obviously, moving forward for next season. I know they only finished 3 points off RB Leipzig for second, but it's not the fact that they didn't finish second. For me, it's the gap now that they had between them and Bayern, and this was a Bayern side who they had some struggles this season, but they have so much quality that quality will always see them through. And sometimes for Dortmund, that's an X factor that they might not have or they do not have. So I think the summer is going to be incredibly important for them, not just from figuring out if Tuchel's going to come in or if it's going to be Lucien Favre or if it's going to be somebody else. But also I think that they have to figure themselves out on the pitch, and I think that that as mentioned before, that over reliance on Aubameyang, it can't exist next season. I think, especially because, like I said before, Royce is inevitably going to get hurt, and you never know. Both Dembele and Pulisic might have down seasons because they still are young players, and young players are susceptible, so more often than not, of getting into patchy form when you lack real experience. It can just happen out of nowhere sometimes. So I think there's some questions, but happy they got Champions League, but I'm not happy with the gap at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's fair for you to say. Completely fair. But two clubs that will be, well, I say two clubs that will be happy. Hertha BSC, Hertha Berlin, to you and I, got into Europe. Also, Cologne back. Anthony Modeste will be sharp shooting his way through European football next season, if he stays, of course. Terrific season for Cologne, really, isn't it? That overperformed, nipped in ahead of my beloved Freiburg, but probably, given Freiburg's squad, it's probably a good thing that they didn't make Europe for their own future, to be honest, at this stage. But yeah, just a word for Cologne, really. A 2-0 victory, securing that European place, 2-0 over Mainz. Hector Onosaka with the goals. Amazing, really, isn't it, to think that Cologne are back in European football?
I think it is. I think it's their first time in 25 years that they'll be in Europe, and they just got promoted back to the Bundesliga just a couple seasons ago, 2 seasons before this current one, and they were floating around mid-table, 12th, 13th, that area, and now they squeaked out a lot of close results where sometimes other teams maybe below them won't do enough to see out a draw. I think they had the second most draws in the league after Hoffenheim, who had 14. So, but 2 questions for them is going to be, I thought they defended quite well. I think players like Fredrik Sorensen at right back did exceptionally well this season. I think Timo Horn deserves quite a bit of praise. I was actually talking to Korch about Timo Horn the other day, and that we both agreed that if you look past him playing for Koln, he is actually probably one of the better goalkeepers in the Bundesliga, with probably some of the highest upside available. But they probably won't be able to keep him for very long. But I think those 2 players particularly had played a large role in how well they defended. But the bigger question is, how are they going to get on if somehow Anthony Modeste leaves the club? I think he had 25 of their 50 league goals that they scored. There was also an own goal that they're credited with. That's obviously 50% is quite a bit of goals, and much like Aubameyang, I think without Modeste, they wouldn't be where they are at the moment. Positionally wise, they wouldn't finish fifth if either if he wasn't there or if he didn't bag the goals that he did, and a lot of key goals as well. He popped up a lot of key times. I think for me, he also deserves to be in the team of the season, despite finishing behind Lewandowski and Aubameyang in the goal race. But I thought they did exceptionally well, considering they took their chance when the likes of Gladbach and Schalke and Leverkusen started this season. For the entire season, I think Koln saw a chance, and they did squeak out a lot of tough results, and it paid them off in the end. So it's good to see them back, finishing in a higher place, and it's good to see them back in Europe as well. So Podolski will be happy.
Yeah, I wouldn't put money against him ended up back there again. You just know Poldy might fancy him the cracks. He's still at Galatasaray, but because we know he's retired from international.
Yeah, but he has such a love for that club, obviously. So it would not surprise me if he wanted to end his playing days there, at least for one season. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Or maybe Robbie Keane will be there, because I think they're one of his boyhood clubs. No, not at all. Good season all round. We should just wrap up a couple of the other results before we do any other business. Ingolstadt and Schalke, a 1-1 draw there. I think Schalke will look back and think what could have been this season. Pascal Gross, who I think is on his way to Josh's Brighton, I read this week.
Yes, he is.
That's a good signing for them. And I can never pronounce this guy's name for Schalke, so could you please enlighten me? Is it Avdai?
Avdi.
Avdi.
I say Avdi, but I probably don't pronounce it correctly either.
Okay. That bloke for Schalke got the equaliser. And answers on a postcard, please. I'm sure Korosh can put us right. John's Gladbach, 2-2 draw with Darmstadt in that game. Again, Darmstadt maybe will look back at the season and think it's not been the greatest. And the only other result that I've missed on this particular roundup is, of course, Bayern Munich's. They got a 4-1 victory over Freiburg to finish off their season. Any other business? Do you want to just sort of say a word for Philip Lahm and Xabi Alonso?
It'll be weird seeing Bayern play in the German national team without Philip Lahm. I think for me personally, I put him down as one of the most intelligent, if not the most intelligent footballer I've ever seen. And it's been that way for the duration of his career, even from back when he was coming through, when he had that loan spell at Stuttgart and he came back. And then once he came back to the club, the right back spot has been his ever since. I think he's been a fantastic servant. If you don't particularly like Bayern, I think it's almost impossible to hate Philip Lahm. I think he's just that kind of player. And as for Xabi Alonso, I hated him when he was at Liverpool for obvious reasons, but again, he was such a good player, so good at picking out a pass. I think very few, for as long as he could have controlled play and the way that he did. He was so smart in midfield. I think both of them deserve success with whatever they're doing moving forward. And I know that Philip Lahm's going to have a position for himself at the club if he wants to take it. Moving forward, they'll want to keep him on. Bayern are a club that like to take former players and bring them in at board level or at least some sort of capacity. So I think he'll be successful there as well because he knows the game. There is some news I wanted to briefly say. Obviously, Mainz parted with Mark Schmidt for obvious reasons. He went from Europa League to barely barely almost being relegated. So they parted ways. There's no definitive target that they have in mind, so they want to take their time. Hertha signed Matthew Leckie from Ingolstadt. John will be happy that there's a lot of rumors that Vincenzo Griffo is actually going to Gladbach this summer.
I read that, and Lars Stindl signed a new contract. Fabian Johnson has as well, so they're all signing extensions. The big loss is the young kid we got from Chelsea, Christensen.
Christensen. Well, yeah, I think he'll walk in. Yeah, and Terry's done, so I think he immediately has a place for Conte. So there's those two pieces, and I think there's one more I wanted to highlight. Let me find it. Where was it? Oh, this is for Josh. Gen Karaguchi is linked with a move to Brighton this summer. There's that.
I like.
Yeah, and I think that's it, actually. No, this one actually pains me. Marvin Plattenhardt is linked with a move to Bayern in the summer because Juan Bernat's leaving the club. that pains me because they already have David Alaba. So unless they're going to heavily rotate at left back or Alaba's going to move away from left back, I don't know why Plattenhardt would leave. I actually rate him quite highly as a left back. So we'll just see how that gets on. So yeah.
I wonder where he's off to as well. But has it been announced or?
Not that I know of. I just know that he's leaving the club somewhere. At least that's the rumor anyway. I'm not quite sure where to.
Somewhere in Manchester in a blue shirt, maybe. Seeing as they need a fullback and he's Spanish.
Possible.
Especially with a certain Gael Clichy announcing he's leaving that club today. So, yes, one to keep an eye on, methinks, because he played under Pep, of course, last season. So, might be one to keep an eye on that. You heard it here first, boys and girls. We will just quickly read through the table. And we should say, of course, I'm sure you'll all be asking this question with regards to transfers and whatnot. Yes, boys and girls, we will probably do some form of podcast talking about transfers at some point over the season or over the summer, but I don't know when or where, so stay tuned. I'm sure we'll do something at some point. The final Bundesliga table then, 34 games of course played. Bayern Munich win the league, 82 points by quite a gap from RB Leipzig in second on 67. Amazing season for them, has to be said. Champions League football for them, along with Borussia Dortmund, who are in third place, and Hoffenheim, who will go through the qualifiers in fourth, with Cologne and Hertha BSC qualifying for the Europa League. Freiburg, pretty amazing season for them, having just come up, finishing seventh, with Werder Bremen's amazing mid-season form surviving in eighth in the table. Gladbach ninth and Schalke 10th. Eintracht Frankfurt ahead of their final with Dortmund on Saturday, and the German Cup, isn't it, of course, with upcoming. They finished 11th, pretty decent season all told there. Leverkusen not so much, 12th, Augsburg 13th, we've covered Hamburg 14th, Mainz survived just in 15th, Wolfsburg facing that playoff with Braunschweig, with Ingolstadt and Darmstadt returning to the Bundesliga survive. All told, quick roundup of the old stats. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang secured the German Golden Boot, which I'm sure it has a name. Drew, fill me in here if you know it. But that was secured. 31 goals for him on his in his season, and he was one clear of Robert Lewandowski, who hit 30, and Anthony Modeste with that amazing season, 25 goals for him. A quick word for Timo Werner, who until this season wasn't exactly a centre forward, 21 goals for him, amazing. And of course Mario Gomez still going strong on 16. As far as the assists, this was won by Emil Forsberg, 19 assists for the RB Leipzig Swedish international.
I love him.
He's amazing, isn't he?
And to answer your question, it's the Torjäger Kanone, is the Bundesliga Golden Boot. There you go.
Glad you said that, not me.
You want me to spell it out for you?
No, I'll just bow to your knowledge. I'll take that on board. Ousmane Dembele of Dortmund, 12 assists for him. Thomas Muller, who's not had a stellar season by any stretch of the imagination, but still managed to register 12 assists himself, along with the old-timers Ribéry and Robben with 11 and 9 respectively, backing up. And of course, the bad boys list, we have to do this. Core of Augsburg, 13 yellows, 1 red. This is a fun one. Gabarman of Mainz, 4 yellow cards. Doesn't sound too bad, does it? 3 red cards. 3 red cards in one season. Wow. And Bell of Mainz. Christ, they were bad this year, weren't they, Mainz? 10 yellow cards for him. And 1 red card. Special shout out to Omar Mascaral of Frankfurt. 13 yellow cards this season. 12 for Nabil Bentaleb. Spurs fans will remember him, of Schalke. So they're also making our bad boys list. And looking down the list of names, not too many obvious candidates elsewhere in that list. Maybe other than Luis Gustavo, who managed 7 yellow cards and 1 red this season. And of course, Vedad Ibisevic, who can never behave himself. 8 yellows, 1 red for him. So there's a couple of stats for you.
Quickly, the ruling still hasn't come down yet on if RB Leipzig are going to be in Champions League or not, because the stipulation is that a company or a franchise or whatever have you cannot own 2 clubs in the same competition. Obviously, because it's Red Bull Salzburg won the Austrian Bundesliga, they get qualification to Champions League. So we don't know yet if Leipzig are going to be in the competition or not yet. Also, we don't know if there's going to be some underhanded UEFA nonsense as to where Red Bull pays them an exorbitant amount of money to have both of them in. So you never know. So we'll see.
What on earth are you suggesting? How dare you suggest corruption in football? Just quickly, what happens if they don't? Does the places move down? Do they just go to the Europa League and the team below them go in the Champions League?
I don't know either, because this, to my knowledge, this hasn't happened before.
No, I can't remember it happening.
So, exactly. I mean, if it has, I don't recall. So I do not know what's going to happen. I would think that they should get some sort of European compensation for it. So maybe Germany will get an extra Europa League spot for it, but I just don't know though yet. We'll have to see once the ruling comes down. Obviously, they'll come up with some sort of contingency plan after that, I hope, because they shouldn't get no Europe at all. I think they should get some sort of Europe for finishing second, obviously. So we'll see.
And if that happened, of course, Cologne technically would potentially be Champions League, and Freiburg, as low as 7th, could end up in the Europa League, maybe. So, yeah, interesting. Interesting. That is, of course, if, as you say, if Leipzig. I have a feeling that will all get worked out somewhere or the other. If only we had a man who's interested in things like coefficient to look things up like this. So.
No, not again.
John, you've time's ticking. You've got roughly an hour to look up what happens if. Right, that's Germany done and dusted then for another season. We will, of course, bring you news of what we're going to do over the summer, German-based, which we'll touch on at the end of the show. And we'll be back for some questions in a short while. But we're off to the Coefficient Central League next. No, we're not. It's Italian football, of course. We're off to John's neck of the woods to talk about another champion. It's this week's Serie A. Right, John. So this was the worst kept secret in Italian football. We all knew it was going to happen, but finally it did happen. Roma tried their very best to cock it up on Friday night as they beat Chievo in a thriller 5-3, but they were behind at one point. Then they were level. Then they were behind again. Ended up scoring 4 more goals and winning 5-3. A couple from El Shaarawy and a couple from Mo Salah, which put the quote-unquote pressure on for Juventus as they came into their game with Crotone on the Saturday, and a 3-0 win, goals from Mandzukic, Dybala and Alexandro, securing the title 6 in a row, I think I'm right in saying, for Juve. Is there any point in playing next season, or can anyone catch this machine of Juve?
No, I mean, it is really impressive what they've done. The 6th Scudetto, no other club has ever done that in Serie A history. It's been the Grande Torino side did 5 in a row, Inter have done 5 in a row, but yeah, for a team to do 6 and to come from where they were 10 years ago in Serie B, and if you go back and look at some of the players in that squad who was there, where they've gone to, brand new management obviously had to come in because they were all named and possibly involved to whatever degree you might want to accuse them of in the Calciopoli scandal, and it's amazing what they've done. The stadium move, coming back into Serie A, keeping some, the loyalty some of the players showed, like Nedved and Buffon, sticking with the club. And then coming back into it, and now not just dominating Serie A, but being a real force in Europe again, which is something that Italian teams haven't done for a long time. And yeah, the well-deserved title. Got it a little bit later than they would have liked. They could have won it earlier, that's for sure. Their form in the league is not so much dipped, but I think they've kind of taken the foot off a little bit, so they can concentrate more on the Champions League games. They won the Coppa Italia final as well midweek against Lazio, very comfortable 2-0, much changed side. So 2 trophies down, 1 to go. They still celebrated the game, and there was some nice scenes and all the kids out on the pitch with the players and that kind of thing. Buffon standing goal whilst everyone else went into the changing rooms to celebrate, all the kids taking shots at him, which was pretty funny. As for the game itself, Juventus weren't amazing in it. They weren't playing to their best ability. In Crotone, had a couple of half chances, like hit the bar and that. But in the end, Mandzukic gets the first goal. Everyone's nerves relax a little bit, and then Dybala scored a brilliant free kick, and that was the game done. So, yeah, really, really good season from them. And they just hope that they can obviously could put the performance in the big final with Madrid coming up for the Champions League, and there'd be an unprecedented treble, because the last team to do it was Inter in 2010. That was a very different team and a very different style of football. That, as much as I was obviously very happy as an Inter fan for doing the treble, it wasn't the most entertaining football in the world, whereas Juventus have done it with some real class, played some brilliant football throughout the season, scored some amazing goals, and showed what depth they've got in the squad as well. Disappointment obviously for Crotone, but but they still get their chance to stay up for the last game of the season. I don't think they were realistically expecting anything from this, so they go to the last game of the season and hope they can get the result they need, and that a certain Empoli don't get the result that they want.
Yes, yeah, we will certainly touch on Crotone in a tick, because we're all Crotone fans here. We all hope they do it, I'm sure. Well, I certainly do anyway.
Just one quick thing, actually, for anyone who looks at, because I know people like looking at the celebrations different teams do and stuff, and obviously we talked about Benfica's, the crazy one with the moped in the changing room, which was funny. There's a brilliant scene with Bonucci and his two sons, and we spoke before about one of his sons, Lorenzo, is a huge Torino fan, and he looks absolutely miserable in a Juve shirt, standing on the pitch with all the Juventus players all celebrating, and he's just stood there looking so unhappy that he's got to wear a Juve shirt and he can't wear a Torino one. It's a very strange picture, but it did make me laugh.
Yeah, miserable as sin. I did see that. That's quite an amusing image, that. But we touched obviously just briefly on Roma. We should say, of course, your league has to be the bloody awkward one, doesn't it? It doesn't wrap up just yet. We have got a game Pescara against Palermo tonight and one more round of fixtures to go. But Roma obviously likely to finish second. They're still in a chase with Napoli, who could still yet leapfrog them. Season of change for them. We are going to say goodbye to one of their, arguably their most favoured son, most beloved son in Francesco Totti next weekend. So feel free to talk Totti, and also the fact that they've got Monchi coming in, who Joel's mentioned on the podcast previously, from Sevilla, the transfer football director guru, if you will. It seems like it's going to be quite a lot of change in the summer for the Roma side and squad. Wojciech Szczesny already apparently going to be removed from the loan deal with the option to buy. They're not going to take that up. So there's quite a lot of change coming up for the Totti-less Roma next season.
Yeah, the game itself was kind of it's a prime example of the good and bad of Roma, because they scored 5 goals and were brilliant going forward, but they just lacked concentration at times and let Chievo score, 3 goals that they shouldn't have done, and it was just a mad game. And kind of the end of the atmosphere at the end of the season around Roma is very odd. The whole Totti thing is strange. The game was a huge sellout, and all the Chievo fans were singing Totti's name before he even came on the pitch. There was also, I can't remember the young lad's name, I'll have to look it up, but there was a 16-year-old who came on for Chievo, who apparently Totti, when as the 16-year-old came on, said, "Who are you? Are you old enough to play football?" Because he thought he was about 12. He found out he was 16, and then said, "Can I have 10 years of you so I can keep on playing?" Which I thought was quite funny. But yeah, it's a strange season for Roma, because they've actually done very well. And I know people will point to obviously their cup defeats, and perhaps they could have pushed Juve a little bit more. But when you look at the size of the squad and what they've done with it, the fact they can't really rotate that much, it's actually been quite impressive. And Edin Dzeko, who last season didn't have his best ever campaign, that's for sure, he's been absolutely on fire up front, and looks like he may win the Capocannoniere, which is the Italian Golden Boot. Chris, I won't get you to say that. So, so a good season for them, and obviously they're just looking to the last game of the season now to. If they win it, then they're guaranteed the automatic qualification for Champions League, which is huge for them. Monchi coming in is really big. Spalletti looks like he's definitely going to walk away. So, new manager coming in. The hot favourite at the moment is PSG's manager, Unai Emery, to come in. Obviously, worked with Monchi before. How the Roma fans will accept him and his style of football, I'm not really sure, but we shall see. As for ins and outs at the club, Szczesny will be gone. They were originally looking at making the purchase, and Napoli were interested as well. That now seems to have faded, and I think Monchi coming in means that the targets have changed. But he's had a really good season there. As for Totti, there's still no actual word from him on what he's doing, but as far as the club stance is on it, this is his last season, and it will be his last game coming up this weekend for Roma. And it's just amazing how long he's played for the club, and just you think of the talents that have come and gone, and the amount of times he could have left the club and he stayed loyal the whole time. You just don't get those sort of players anymore. It's very rare that you see that. And it's funny as well, because you've got him retiring. You see John Terry at Chelsea. Obviously, he's another one club man, and I think you're not going to see anyone else like that. and it'll be a huge turnout for his last game, definitely. And the nice thing as well was that even the Lazio fans were singing songs, nice songs about Totti, even during the Coppa Italia final against Juve. So even they're like the most bitter enemies are huge fans of him and really respect him and what he's done.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get quite as much of a palaver as John Terry when Francesco Totti goes. I was really surprised that Antonio Conte allowed that to happen. Sidebar from yesterday, but nevertheless, yes, Totti deserves that and more.
Emmanuel Vigneto. Vigneto? I think that's how you say it. Yeah, the 16-year-old who came on. Yeah, Totti wanted to take 10 years off him.
Bless him. There's a name to keep an eye out for. Napoli, in their pursuit of Roma, won 4-1 against Fiorentina on Friday night. A couple more goals for Dries Mertens, another one for Lorenzo Insigne, and Koulibaly scoring. Ilicic with one back Fiorentina. Do you still back Roma to make that final spot, or final spot, the automatic qualification spot with their final game?
Yeah, I mean, they're at home the last game. It's against Genoa, who are now safe, which we'll mention that game in a minute. And Napoli have a slightly harder game away to Sampdoria, so you'd expect Roma to get the win there at home. Totti's last game, that kind of thing. So I would suspect that they end up finishing second and get the automatic spot. A bit disappointing for Napoli. They dropped points at a couple of stupid moments in the season, but the big news for them is that Dries Mertens has signed a new contract. 30 years old, they managed to get him to sign. It was a bit up in the air, looked like he was going to move. His family weren't too keen on Naples itself, but now he's staying, so that's really big for them. He has a release clause, but it doesn't become active until next summer, and it's 30 million euros is the release clause. So they tied his contract kind of to Sarri's, because Sarri's contract is up in that summer as well. So if Sarri leaves, Mertens goes, there should be money for a new manager, and if Mertens does get bought out, then they've got some money to spend. So some positives for Napoli anyway. But again, I think another team that I think has had a good season, they just really need to nail that Champions League qualification, because I think if they get into the group stage, then they can actually progress decently into it, because they've played some superb football this season. Probably been as good as Juventus have been, and Napoli have definitely been the most entertaining side to watch.
Yeah, well said. And Napoli away at Samp on the final day, you would, even though Samp are pretty decent at home, you'd expect them to get the result they need. So putting the pressure on in that one. Just very briefly, we should touch on the race for 4th/5th. We know that it's basically between the two clubs who finishes 4th, who finishes 5th, between Lazio and Atalanta. Atalanta, we've waxed lyrical about on this podcast for many weeks, so their 1-0 win at Empoli will kind of scoot over with a Gomez with a winner. But something bizarre happened on Sunday night. Inter Milan won a match away from home, having gone 8 games without a win. They were on the cusp of club history. Their fans totaled about 4 in the end, because they all kind of walked out and did what they did last week, didn't they? All went for a meal after Lazio took the lead through Keita Balde, but then spectacularly the wheels fell off. Andreoli scoring for Inter to equalise, a Wesley Hurt's own goal before Keita Balde himself was sent off for 2 bookables. Selad Lulic was also dismissed for 2 yellows. Could easily have ended up with another 3 off from what I saw. They completely lost their marbles. Eder proving that with a 3rd goal, which basically secured the points for Inter. What happened here? I mean, Lazio were cruising, Inter were awful as usual, and then it all just turned on that Andreoli goal, and Inter managed to scrape the points, and this opens the door for Atalanta going into the final day now.
Yeah, the Atalanta result was important as well, obviously, because they beat Empoli, which affects things down the bottom, but we'll get to that in a minute. But the Lazio game was weird because Inter were awful throughout pretty much the entire match, to be honest, and Lazio should have won it. They got the goal, penalty, Felipe Anderson running into the box, just taking Jason Murillo on one-on-one, and he made a really stupid foul, just sort of symptomatic of inter-season and really bad individual mistakes. Keita Balde stepped up, despite Immobile being on the pitch. He wanted to take the penalty he scored. I think that's his 15th goal of the season, which is really impressive when you consider, he was unhappy at the club, wanted to move. He was away with Senegal for the African Cup of Nations for a while as well, so he's had a great season. And then Inter just got amazing luck, basically. Andrioli knew nothing about the goal he scored. Got a flick on from Perisic and basically hit him in the face and went in from a Brozovic corner. And then, second goal, the own goal from Wesley Hoyt, another corner, goes all the way to the back stick, filters out to Candreva, he whips it in, deflects off, I think it might have been Lulic first, and then Wesley Hoyt into the own goal. Nothing the keeper can do about it. Horrendous luck for Lazio. They just couldn't find their way back into it in the end. The goal from Eder was a nice tap in again, some mistakes at the back from Hoyt, who I think kind of lost his head a little bit. The sendings off, I thought, was a little strange. The first yellow card for Keita Balde was fine. There was nothing wrong with that. The second one seemed a little harsh. And again with Stefan Lulic as well, I think the referee kind of lost control of the game a little bit. But it's very big now because both of those players are suspended, obviously, for the last game of the season, and they're away to Crotone, who are fighting to stay up. So it's a huge game for them. Lazio are going to be out with two of their key players. Immobile hasn't been in the best of form the last couple of games. He absolutely ripped a shot off the crossbar that I'm surprised didn't break it in the game, but he just can't find the back of the net in the last few games. So that's not good news for Lazio, because obviously they would prefer the. I think both those spots are still automatic because of the cup result. So the Europa League places filter down, but it's obviously extra money, and it would be nice to finish in fourth place rather than fifth. But yeah, really amazing opportunity for Atalanta, obviously. So all comes down to the last day for a few key decisions and places.
I agree. That goal from Andrioli, that's my kind of goal. That would, if I'd have ever got a goal in Sunday League, I think that probably would have been my kind of goal. Just
my centre back partner did exactly the same thing in a game. For some, I ended up taking a free kick, and I just saw him coming in. And I was just like, I'll just aim it for this sort of backstick area, and he just ran. And then as the ball came in, I don't think he even saw it. It just went straight in off his nose. I was like, yeah, claim that.
I think if you asked any professional on the whole, especially when they're looking at free kicks like that, a player just puts it into an area and hopes for the best on a lot of occasions, even at the very top level. So, hats off to him, and a win for Inter. Very much overdue. And I know you're not very keen on their new barcode kit, but I quite like it. I quite like that.
I'm very upset because AC Milan have got a nice traditional one. And it's just nice, simple and pretty, and Inter have got this stupid kit. Ugh.
But hey, at least they don't have yellow socks next year. I know you weren't a fan. I quite liked it, but I did quite like that, but still. And a debut in goal, actually, for Lazio in this game for Ivan Vargic at 30 years of age. Bizarre. So he got his debut. Is Marchetti still alive? Is he just 107 now?
just had injuries and suspension, so that's why it's Croatian, isn't he? Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Was in goal for this game, yeah.
They've actually got 5 goalkeepers on their books. Amazing. 2 youngsters, in truth. But yes, and you very nicely set up our final sort of look at the Serie A sort of standings this week, because we have got a fight at the bottom. We know Palermo and Pescara, who are playing each other tonight, have gone, but Crotone live on. Now, Genoa, with that huge victory for them, gets them clear. They beat Torino 2-1 this weekend. So that does get them out of the relegation zone. Rigone and Simeone's son got the goals there. Laic with one late back for Torino wasn't enough, but we know now.
Joe Hart doing his best to make sure that everyone shoots down to his left-hand side, as they did for both goals.
He will be back in England quicker than you can say ing at the end of the season. But yeah, we know Empoli and Crotone now. It goes down to the last day because Empoli, as we said, lost to Atalanta, standard, and we know Crotone lost to Juve, which was, fairly acceptable. This is going right down to the wire. Minus 26 goal difference for Crotone could prove crucial because there's minus 31 goal difference for Empoli. So, final day, who are you backing and why?
Oh, it's really hard because Empoli go away to Palermo, who obviously have nothing to play for, but it's their last home game of the season in Serie A. So you would expect, or at least hope, that the players try and put in a performance. And Empoli have not been good. Crotone have obviously got everything to play for. It's at home. It's huge. Lazio are coming. There will be pressure on them because, weirdly, there are 2 games before on the Saturday, and Atalanta are one of those games. So if they win their game, then Lazio do have to perform to get that spot. But those 2 players suspended is really big for them. I think Crotone can get something from the game, whether it's a draw or not. I just really do think it depends on what performance Palermo put in. I'm sorry, Empoli fans. I don't like wishing any team to be relegated, but Crotone have done so well, and the fact that no one wanted to join them, they tried to sack the manager and no one would take the manager's position, so they couldn't even sack him, so he had to keep his job. I just think it's a brilliant story. I'd love for them to stay up. It'd be amazing.
I'm with you. I think all of the pods are kind of with Crotone. It's just that classic underdog style, isn't it? And
when you can't even get a manager, like no one wants to take the money. It's just like, all right, we can't sack you now, so we've got to stick with you. And he turns it round. It's brilliant.
Amazing. And I think we had some teams, didn't we, last season? I can't remember who it was. Who was Hellas Verona last year? Who was the other team that we got on?
Frosinone as well.
Frosinone, that's who I'm thinking of. Yeah, who were this year's Crotone or last year's Crotone, and we kind of hope that they would stay up. So, the wind is with Crotone as far as this pod goes. We'll just run up a couple of the results and see what's what. Milan winning 3-0 against Bologna, Delafeo, Kazuki Honda, who's likely to leave the club in the summer, and Lapadula with the goals there.
That's Milan back in Europe, and for the first time in, I think it's 4 years, I could be wrong, they finish above Inter as well.
Interesting. And Inter very much not in Europe. Sassuolo going goal crazy against Cagliari. Mangianelli with a goal. Berardi, Politano, Borriello and Lamello. And a late Alessandro Matri goal, 6-2 win over Cagliari. Rusasau and I can never say this guy's name. Inoita? We're going to go with that. For Cagliari in that game, Udinese drew with Samp and 1-1. Muriel scoring and being sent off in the same incident for Samp. Interesting there. Danilo sent off in the same incident for Udinese, as was Rodrigo de Paul. Terrell with the goal for Udinese there. So lots of red cards. Happy days. And of course, as we said, Pescara, Palermo are currently in action. Pescara are 1-up as we speak in a game that means absolutely nothing. So that is Italy. As for the table, we know Juventus have won the league, 4 points clear of Roma going into the final game of the season. Roma and Napoli in a straight shootout for second and third at the moment. Lazio and Atalanta, we mentioned, fourth and fifth. Who will finish there? We shall see. Milan, as you said, into Europe in sixth position, into seventh. Fiorentina 8th, Torino 9th, Samp 10th, with Sass 11th, Udinese 12th, Cagliari 13th, Chievo Flying Donkeys in 14th, with Bologna 15th, Genoa 16th and safe. And then it comes down to Empoli and Crotone on the final day, 32 points and 31 points respectively, with Palermo and Pescara gone. So that's the end of those. Top goal scorers in the Italian Serie A, the Capo Campagnari. I'm reliably informed. There we go. Edin Dzeko, as you rightly say, 28 goals out in front, one clear of Dries Mertens on 27, and Andrea Bellotti with a lovely old season for him, 25 goals. Gonzalo Higuain, you won't be surprised to know, had 24. Mauro Icardi, also 24. So quite big names on that list, actually. Carlos Bacca, Milan's top goal scorer, on 13 on that list as well. As for the assists, Jose Callejon and Mohamed Salah, 11 apiece, top of that particular ranking. Gomez of Atalanta having a good season as well, 10 for him. And Felipe Anderson, Domenico Berardi and Walter Berscher and Antonio Candreva and Suso and Hamsik and Lulic and Mertens all have 9 assists this season, and Borja Valero actually as well, all on 9 assists. One notable name on that list, Mauro Icardi, not only is he goal scorer, he's provided 8 this season. What would Inter do without him? We might find out this summer. And finally, the bad boys. John, you won't be surprised to know that Juraj Kucka is indeed the naughtiest player in Italy, my old mate. 10 yellow cards, 3 reds. Bet you can't guess who's second on that bad boy list.
I'll
give you a hint. He's also at Milan.
Oh.
And he's got really bad hair.
No.
You were close when you went Pal.
I was going to say... Paletta. Excuse me, Paletta?
Yes.
Yeah.
five yellow cards, 4 reds, 4 red cards in a season. I mean, that's just bonkers, isn't it? Gastadello, also a bad boy, 11 yellows for him and 2 red cards for Bologna man. And notable names on this list: Aqua at Torino, 5 yellows, 3 reds for him. That's a good going. 14 yellow cards for Belushi at Empoli. That's quite impressive as well. Along with Rigoni at Genoa, 13 yellow cards for him this season. Quite impressive. Only other name on that list that I can pick out. Well, to be honest, no, they're all kind of the names you'd expect, really. No big names. Rodriguez at Fiorentina, also 7 yellows and 2 reds for him. So plenty of bad boys in Italy. That's what we like to hear. Cash your mind back to the old days, that does, doesn't it? I presume you're not going to pick out a game to watch next week, John. We know Juve won, of course, the Coppa d'Italia last week against Lazio. So that's it, really, isn't it, for Italy after next week?
Just very quickly, it looks like Milan actually are doing transfers properly rather than Inter. It looks like Masaccio is coming in from Villarreal. Medical's supposed to be today, allegedly. I don't know whether that's true or not. Ricardo Rodriguez looks like he's going to sign as well. And Frank Kesse from Atalanta. It looks like they've nicked him under the noses of Roma. As for Inter, the only transfer news I've got is that they're trying to buy and put into position every single person that Antonio Conte has ever wanted or worked with, because his family still hasn't moved to London, and if they don't move for next season, then there is a rumour he will come back. There is €50 million contract on the table for him. If not, the favourite at the moment is still Spalletti, though, to take the job, which would make sense because Sabatini is now coming as the second director of football. But yeah, I don't know how that works either. The only other news, Cuadrado is officially signed for Juve, just £20 million. Paid over 3 instalments as well. How they do these transfers, I have no idea. But that was officially announced today. Teams coming up from Serie B, you have Spal and Hellas Verona are confirmed, and there are playoffs actually as we speak. Cittadella are playing Carpi, Benevento are playing Spezia. That's the quarterfinals and the semi-finals this weekend, and so on. So yeah, it's a while yet before we know who the third team is coming up.
Yes, bonkers, Serie B, absolutely bonkers. If you watch Serie B and you want to explain it all to us and you want to follow it next season, please be my guest. We'll build you a page on the website and you can blog away to your heart's content, because we can't follow it for love nor money. So yeah, there's an open invitation for anybody who likes Serie B. Not that it's not entertaining, it's just absolutely crazy. And Jesus, have you seen the Liga Pro and all that? Wow, It's just everywhere. There's like 400,000 clubs in Italy. Anyway, very quickly, Joel, good signing for Milan if Masaccio comes in? Yeah,
very good player. He was really linked heavily with Spurs a couple of seasons ago, but it never came off. But he's a good player. It'll be a loss to Villarreal that. I thought he would move on at different points. He's been linked with a lot of clubs. He's linked with Barca, Real Madrid. But that's a really good signing, Masaccio. I do rate him. He's a good defender, typical South American defender.
Must confess, as an Arsenal fan, I was a little bit disappointed we didn't get him over Gabriel, but that's just me. Good signing for Milan, and we all know that I love Ricardo Rodriguez. Oh, my heart beats for that man.
It's quite a back line they'll have next year. Donnarumma, Masaccio, Romagnoli, Rodriguez and Abate. Oh, it also looks like Matteo De Sciglio is leaving the club. If Rodriguez comes in, he might be joining Juve. Just unbelievable.
Long-time servant as well, and don't forget Paletta's wig. Because I'm not.
Yes, of course.
I mean, that hair, I'm just not having it. I'm not having it at all. Really, really bizarre. But yes, good bit of business done for Milan. It breaks my heart to say. Okay, we will of course be back with some questions to finish off the pod in a little while from Serie A. So we're going to leave Italy there for another week, and albeit another season, even with a week to go. And we're going to go off to France next, where I shall kind of semi-host my own segment as we have a finish to France, and we know the fate of Lorient. Sigh. Is this week's Liga. Right. Okay. John, I'm kind of going to piggyback a little bit with you on this one then, and get the other guys involved if there's anything they want to ask. So we knew that Monaco, going into last week, we knew what Monaco had to do to clinch the Liga title, and they did it. They beat St Etienne by 2-0. I thought it's quite fitting that Valère Germain hit the late goal to sort of secure it, albeit the game was won, but it was a 1-0 performance at the time. That man, Kylian Mbappe, at it again. But I thought it was quite fitting that Germain scored, because he's a player who sort of went out on loan, has come back. He was the captain until Falcao returned to fitness, I suppose we should say. Just a word really for you for Monaco. I mean, there's not a lot that we can't really say that hasn't been said already, I suppose, but fitting that they were able to secure the title at home in front of the massive, well, maybe not massive crowd in Monaco at all, but
it's quite big for a Monaco crowd.
It was quite big, and of course they got 50 Cent. Not particularly my cup of tea, but nevertheless he sung them out, if you will. The only thing I thought was a bit strange, they celebrated in PSG colours. I think that was more of a Nike marketing deal, t-shirts wise, but just a word for Europe's great entertainers, really.
They've been great to watch this season. They had some disappointments with the two cups that they went out of, but I think they were happy to accept kind of the defeat to Juventus, and the PSG one maybe stung a little bit more. But in the league, just unbelievable. The amount of goals they scored, so many different players. Obviously, Mbappe was like the big shining star from the team, but it's not just him. Bernardo Silva and even older players like Jaume Coutinho, who's obviously out of contract, and Benjamin Mendy, Thomas Lemar. There's so many you can list through that team. Bakayoko, all put in great performances, way ahead of the sort of their age, and the way they conducted themselves on and off the pitch. I think it's been really impressive. Leonardo Jardim's stock has just absolutely risen. I don't think anyone could have predicted that they would be able to play this free-flowing, attacking football after you saw what he got Monaco to do last year, where they were much more defensive, kind of more functional team. Just brilliant. And to topple, PSG, who have dominated the league for so long, Monaco do have more money than a lot of clubs, and they have the advantage of being in Monaco, so they have their tax breaks and those kind of benefits that come with that, but they do not have the money to compete with PSG to spend anymore. That's gone, and they've adapted this new system of bringing in youth talent and then selling it on for profit and redoing and starting a new cycle, and it's really amazing. I'm just sad that I think it'll end up being more than just one or two players that leaves this squad in the summer. Maybe Kylian Mbappe is one that stays another year, and that'd be great for Monaco, and I think it'd probably be best for him as well if he wants to play for France in the World Cup next year. It's probably the best thing for him, but I think there might be one too many players gone from the team, and it will take him a little bit longer to put in the performances that they have done this season. But yeah, fully deserved, and definitely one of the best teams, if not the best to watch in Europe, just in terms of them going forward. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, well said. Incredible performance overall. It's the thing that really got me, which is very easy to forget. They were champions of Ligue 2 just 4 years ago. It's amazing to think that Claudio Ranieri was the coach at the time. They came up from Ligue 2 and they didn't have basically a pot to piss in, to quote the English phrase. And then all of a sudden there was all the money, and James and Falcao and Moutinho and all that. That all obviously went sour when Mrs. Rybolovlev said, "I'd like some money, please." And now here they are to rebuild in the way they have, and not just that. As you said quite rightly there, Jardim has reinvented himself as a coach incredibly, and the celebrations where he was in the dressing room, I think, really showed how much the players think of him. That he was front and centre of all those celebrations. So many congratulations to Monaco. Drew, you had a quick question before I talk about the clubs that were fighting out to enter Liga, and then we'll come back again. So your question, Drew, what was it you wanted to pick up on Monaco?
Yeah, so there are obviously there's 5 or 6 players who are heavily linked with moves away from the club this summer in the wake of their performances this season, both domestically and in Champions League. Who do you think Monaco can expect to actually keep? And I guess the follow-up question would be, with the players who could potentially leave, who have Monaco been linked with potentially bringing into the club as a way to progress, moving forward with both trying to establish dominance in the league domestically and also maybe take another shot at Europe?
It's a tough question. It's the one everyone's asking. I think that they will strengthen, but I think probably what they're going to do this season is they're going to try and get some players in before they start letting everyone go. I think we'll see as many as 4, maybe even 5 leave, although obviously the president and all the management staff have said they don't want certain people to go. I do think some will. We've already talked about Yuri Tielemans potentially coming in. I know. I'm led to believe that is a done deal, even though there's a lot of talk that Manchester United and a few others are trying to hijack it. I'm led to believe that's pretty much sealed. And there's also a lot of talk that they're gonna kind of fish around for some fullbacks in the summer because, of course, Mendy and Sidibe are courting interest from elsewhere. So I think you'll probably see them move for a few younger fullbacks. They might even bring in a bit of experience as well. There's a little bit of talk that they might go fishing in Spain for some experienced players. There's a little bit of interest in Camacho, I'm led to believe. I don't know if Joel's heard that, but I think that would be an interesting one if they let Moutinho, for example, move on, although I don't think he caught as much interest as he did once upon a time. As for the outgoings, obviously Kylian Mbappe is going to be the main centre of attention. I would love to see him stay for another season if he doesn't go to Arsenal, of course. But I have a horrible feeling that the two big boys in Spain might have a little sniff, more so Real Madrid than anyone, as we mentioned earlier on. A lot of that will depend on the future of Morata and maybe Benzema, of course. But yeah, I do have this horrible feeling that he will be poached. I hope he doesn't end up in a club where they don't utilise him properly, United. But yeah, I just don't want to see him go the same route as Anthony Martial and move too fast for too much money and it all go a bit tits up for him. That said, the talent, he's a freak. He really is that good. As for the rest, Germain's been linked with Marseille. I don't think that will happen, but it depends on the Giroud interest. And as John said, Bakayoko, I do think will leave. I do think Lamar will also leave. I think Bernardo Silva is almost certainly a done deal to Manchester United, which kind of breaks my heart, Drew. So I feel your pain on Tielemans. And the only other one that there's talk of is Fabinho. I think it will take an awful lot of money to get Fabinho out of Monaco because he's been brilliant this season. I think it's going to take huge money to get him. So I really hope they keep the core group together. And they're also, they're well set up. They've got some young players coming through. So I really hope they keep the core group together and maybe only sell one of the big guns. I mean, Bernardo Silva is going to command 50, 60 million plus anyway. So if they get that money in, maybe they don't need to sell anybody else. So that's my view on Monaco. But as wonderful as they are, and I could talk about them for hours, we shall leave them behind and quickly have a look at what happened below. John, did you see this mental finish to Ligue 2? Did any of you guys see this? There was... Yes. Wow. I mean, this was quite the epic race.
5 different teams at one point were promoted and then not, and then in the playoffs.
Absolutely, yeah. We went into the end of the season where I think it's as many as 6 teams could potentially get promoted. It was indeed. In the end, Strasbourg, who are quite a famous old name of French football, Arsene Wenger, of course, cut his teeth down in Strasbourg. So they are a Liga club officially. That is done and dusted. I think it's really good to see a club like Strasbourg back because they're, as you say, a classic old name, a vintage club back in Liga. So they are coming up. Welcome back to them. But also Amiens SC, amazing story this, for the first time in their history, 116-year history, no less, promoted to Liga. This, I don't know if you saw the commentary for the goal that got them this result. I think I posted it in our group. Amazing. Into the 95th minute, they were as low as 5th. And then that last minute goal, and the commentator and fans and everybody just going mental. Real amazing story. And they leapfrogged everyone and ended up going into the second spot and promotion to Liga on goal difference. Amazing. And only by 2 goals as well. So it's a fabulous finish to their season. Troyes were the managed to secure the 3rd place spot and a playoff, which we'll come on to in a second, with a 3-2 victory over Sochaux. Yes, indeed. 3-2, very good. And what I really liked about this is they've got a goal scorer who got the winning goal in the 88th minute. Now, you won't pronounce it like this, but it's actually spelt Grand Sir, which is brilliant. Obviously, it's Grand Sir is the pronunciation. 20-year-old Samuel Grand Sir. So Grand Sir got the goal that secured Troyes third position. And we'll come on to that sort of scrap now before finishing back at the top again. John, it's sad times. Lorient are indeed the club that go into the playoffs. I should have seen it coming, really, shouldn't I? At one point, I've got a real bee in my bonnet with PSG, which we'll come on to in a minute, because I know Joel's got a question on PSG. PSG basically gave up at home to Koln, and I'm really quite annoyed about it because, I mean, I'm not bitter at all, honest, but at the time, Lorient went behind to Bordeaux in typical Lorient fashion, and I tweeted, I just can't see Lorient scoring. You know what's coming, listeners. 2 minutes later, up pops Le Goff, of all people, a left-back who just never scores goals, to get the equaliser on the 69th minute after Sankare had headed Bordeaux in front early, and at that stage, it was all good. We were all safe. Everything was happy. And then PSG gave up. Now, I have to say, Koln did have a goal ruled out for completely the wrong reasons. It was clearly onside, and they should have equalised earlier. But then, wouldn't you know it, just to break my heart, the very death, 90-minute plus, Rodelin, of course, who else, pops up to score Koln's equaliser after Rabiot put PSG in front. So that basically means that Dijon were already safe because they got a 0-0 at Toulouse. Nancy, despite their 3-1 victory over St Etienne in Christophe Galtier's final game, they won 3-1. Boussaint Digne and Maussa with the goals there, but that wasn't enough. And sorry, Bastia fans, but I'm going to say good riddance to old rubbish. Bastia have gone. That wasn't very impartial of me, was it? But no, they can sod off to Ligue 2. In fact, they can sod off all the way down, as far as I'm concerned. They've gone. They lost to Marseille 1-0. They could have lost 12-0 in truth, but Gomis is winner. So Bastia and Nancy gone. So it's Lorient against Troyes, John. We know that Troyes were that club we mocked last season. They got, what was it, one win all season? I think it was it two in the end.
Yeah, I think it was one. They got one right at the end, didn't they? I think as well. Yeah,
that's right. So I'll take my bias hat off then. Do you favour Lorient or Troyes in your sort of limited knowledge of these two clubs in the playoff?
Well, I don't know a lot about Troyes, but I would say normally when you look at these playoff things, I kind of favour giving the edge to the team that's coming up because the momentum's with them, and they're in the feel-good mood, and the team that are in the relegation playoff, in this case Lorient, are sort of down about it. But I think actually their recent couple of performances, they've put in some, a really good effort and actually tried to turn things around, albeit left it a little bit late. So I just give the edge to Lorient, maybe, but it's really awkward to call in this. It's like what Drew was saying earlier with Wolfsburg. It's so hard to call those games because I think it less comes down to skill and ability and that kind of thing. Like, you can literally put any players out on the pitch, but it's down to how they mentally deal with the pressure. Because clearly it is foreign to us, but it's a very foreign concept as well for English football fans to have a relegation playoff. It's a weird thing. Yeah,
I like the concept. It's the first year in Liga, of course, that they've had a relegation playoff. So
I think it's a good idea. It's another. Well, I suppose it's a money spinner more than anything else, but.
I quite like the idea. I just think it's just typical that bloody Lorient had to be in the first season that they got it going. But it's just sod's law. For anyone that's interested or indeed cares, same as the Bundesliga. Thursday the 25th is the first leg in Troyes before the La Moustoir will host the return leg on the 28th. So again, this time, Sunday actually next week, so less than a week away, to see if Lorient can survive. Just a couple of other quick things we're going to cover at the top of Ligue 1. Well, we know, as I say, Monaco champions. Nice, we knew, finished third. They got a very, very entertaining 3-3 draw away at Lyon's stadium in the final game. Joel, I'm just going to touch on you very quickly on this one before we take a question from you that I know you've got on PSG. But Lyon, Alexandre Lacazette signing off with 2 goals and a tear in his eye as he left the pitch. If he does end up at Atletico Madrid, can you see Simeone deploying him in a 2 with Monsieur Griezmann, or is it going to be more of a Lacazette in the role currently filled by, I suppose, Correa or Carrasco? Is he going to kind of look, or indeed the other French forward's name, Gamero, of course. Is he going to replace Gamero potentially and not be played at his correct position, I would argue?
I think they'll go 2 up front. I think Gamero's been a bit of a disappointment, considering kind of the lengths they went to get him from Sevilla. So I think it'll be Griezmann and Lacazette up front, and Carrasco will play in the kind of midfield 4 wide. So I think that'll be the way Simeone would look to go, because I think Griezmann works better in a 2. He does seem to work better in a 2. He's not done bad with Gamero. It's just not. I think if you think the Champions League semi at the Bernabeu, he missed a really good chance, Gamero. I think that was kind of the final nail in his coffin. He'll still stick around. I just don't think he'll be a starter if they get Lacazette.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he fits into that structure. If, of course, the deal happens, I'm still holding out and lighting candles for the idea that he might end up in North London at some point. But you know what will happen? He won't go to Madrid, and Man City will sign him, so we'll all be disappointed. But yeah, it was a tearful goodbye, and I think he's given some loyal service, and he has said that he wants to join a club that matches his sporting ambition, not necessarily a Champions League club. So I'll keep the fires burning, but I don't hold out much hope. The only other things to resolve, of course, was the European places. Marseille are back in Europe with that victory. They achieve 5th place in Liga, so they go back into the Europa League. It is kind of good to see them back. The only other thing I wanted to very quickly mention before we talk some PSG was El Loco. He's back. Mr. Bielsa, I'm sure John and Joel will be interested to know. He's made it off the plane, and he has been pictured in Lille today. So he has actually made it to
He's already got instructions and got them building sleeping quarters at the training ground as well.
Yes,
apparently.
Indeed.
He's definitely more committed than he was to the Lazio job.
He is box office, that guy. I just hope nobody puts a hot cup of coffee on top of a box like at Marseille, because he will go nuts on somebody's ass. So yes, Project Lille is underway. Franck Passy, the interim coach, showing in the ropes at the training ground today. So he's expected to be officially announced tomorrow. So tune in for more. I'm sure there'll be some kind of nuts statement, or he'll come in a mask, or something will go off. You just never know. But that will be interesting. We'll finish with talk of PSG, because I know that, Joel, you have a question. Just before you ask it, they said farewell to Maxwell, who's not the coffee brand, I should say. That's Maxwell House, of course. But the house was full for Maxwell's goodbye. Another tearful sort of farewell to a true gentleman from PSG. I mean, he's just a legend, absolute legend, and still at his age, much like Zabaleta at Man City, he sort of fits that mould as regards to the send-off that he got. Really nice to see him and his wife and kids on the pitch at the end of the game. So goodbye to him and farewell, and that's kind of your question, I think, Joel, that you had with regards to PSG. Something sort of you wanted to ping my way.
Yeah, so I think it was more on the back of Barca going for Verratti, and I think I read an article that basically said it's not going to happen for a number of reasons, and one of them is that PSG are in no need to sell anybody now. Previously they were under the FFP, and there were kind of restrictions based on, so they've had to trade. They no longer have to do that. So they're looking to kind of build the team now. So they won't be selling anybody major, and they'll be looking to build, and they've got a lot of money to spend, bigger than they've ever had before, because they don't feel there's any restrictions upon them now because they're clear of FFP. So I think is that the case? Are they just going to blow everybody else out the water this summer with wages and transfer fees, I guess?
I mean, it's really hard to say. The biggest problem they've got to overcome is, yes, they're in the Champions League. Yes, they are. It's Paris. Lots of people want to play in Paris. Of course they do, and it's a beautiful city. And as you say, the money's a big draw, but they're still in Liga, and that's the big thing that I think they're gonna suffer with. Yes, they can attract some big names, but how big are those names? And when you look at some of their signings last summer, so many of them didn't work out. Hatem Ben Arfa, Jose Rodriguez, you'll know well. Krachawiak, you'll know well. They need to get rid of a few bad eggs. There's a lot of talk. Thiago Silva will be off this summer. I could actually see him going back to Milan, but that's a side issue. He's likely to go. We all know the links with Alexis Sanchez potentially coming in from Arsenal. I could definitely see that. I could even see them actually going for Mesut Ozil as well. So it could be quite the brutal summer for Arsenal, but you never know. And then there's the other players they need to ship, as we say. I mean, Maxwell's now retired. Kurzawa's largely had a disappointing season. Serge Aurier is, well, Serge Aurier. I think he'll probably depart the club. The biggest thing that I noticed this week was the talk about the goalkeeping situation. I don't know if Drew's had anything about Kevin Trapp returning to Germany, but the overall sort of review of Kevin Trapp is that he isn't PSG's number one next season and hasn't really impressed too many people. I think he's impressed Rihanna on a few dates, but that's about it as far as his social activities go. So on the football pitch, indeed.
Hamburg need a keeper now that Adler's not there, unless they're going to rely on who they have. So you never know.
There you go. I think he will attract attention. Maybe even a club like Man City might have a look. 'Cause he's quite good with his feet, but not particularly good with his hands, which seems to be quite a good resume at Man City. So that was bitchy, wasn't it? But I think he'll go. And Alphonse Areola, who's I thought had a big future ahead of him, has really gone backwards this season. When he's had the chances, he's not really taken them. He certainly hasn't taken many crosses. So he might be on the move. So I think that's the big area to keep an eye on. And I know Barcelona are not exactly enamoured with their goalkeepers, Joel, so I wonder if there might be something in the works there, whether perhaps PSG could have a look at their keepers. I think Barca, they want to keep hold of what's his face, the Dutch number one, whose name escapes me. What's his name?
Tillotson. Yeah, there's a list. Yes. Yeah, I'm quite happy with him. I think he is really good with his feet.
And who's the other goalkeeper?
Mark ter
Stegen, that's the one. Yeah, I think I'd be interested to see if there's any movement there. And then, of course, you got potentially Real Madrid going for David De Gea again, and what that brings. And there could be quite a big goalkeeping merry-go-round this summer. So I think that's going to be the big area to keep an eye on for PSG. But to answer your question, I mean, they'll go big, but who they'll get? Anyone's guess.
I'd say on Marco Verratti, if at any point he becomes available, Juventus will be straight in there to try and get him.
I think it'll be a straight shoot. Juventus and Barcelona, between the two, will be fighting out. I could actually see a certain Mauro Icardi pitching up at PSG at some point as well, given his situation at Inter and whatnot. I know he loves Inter, but depending on what happens at that club at the summer, he's the sort of player that I could see sliding in. Cavani's not getting any younger.
Apparently Perisic is on the list for PSG targets.
Yeah, I could see that.
They need more wingers.
Yeah, they've only got a team of them already. But then, of course, Lucas Moura is probably going to move on. Ben Arfa is almost certainly going to go back to Nice, which is a lovely move, by the way. Draxler will be the centre of attention. I think Angel Di Maria, funnily enough, might end up at Inter, John. So maybe there'll be a
that's the rumour that maybe like a money plus Di Maria for Perisic. Money to PSG. Sorry, not the other way around, obviously.
Yeah, could see that. But no, it's one to keep an eye on. And I very much look forward to PSG bottling it in the Champions League once again next season. I know that was mean, but it does happen too many times. So there you go. We'll just wrap up very quickly then with the table. We know Monaco obviously won the league comfortably in the 95 points from their 38 games played, 107 goals. Wow. PSG in second on 87, Nice on third on 78, and then Olympique Lyonnais going to the Europa League in fourth place, as do Marseille, with Bordeaux in sixth, Nantes seventh, Saint Etienne eighth, Rennes ninth, Guingamp 10th, Lille with Bielsa coming in 11th, Angers, good season for them overall, in 12th, Toulouse and Metz safe in 13th and 14th, Montpellier 15th, Dijon safe in 16th, Caen just safe in 17th, Nancy and Bastia have gone, with Lorient facing that playoff joy of joys. And the stats, Cavani, top scorer in France with 35 goals. Impressive season, in truth, for the Uruguayan. 28 goals for Alexandre Lacazette, equally impressive for him. And Falcao back on the score sheets, third, 21 goals. As far as the assists goes, Morgan Sanson of Marseille, a surprising name maybe to some, 13. Thomas Lemar for 10 for Monaco, and Montpellier with 9 for Riyad Boudebouz on their sheet. Bernardo Silva, also known Jean-Michel Seri, the same figure for Nice as well. And the bad boy list, couldn't leave that one out, could we? Kalzak of Bastia. Nobody will be surprised by that. Smashing boards out of people's hands and all sorts. 4 red cards and 8 yellows for him this season. An impressive 6 yellow cards and 3 red cards for Mauro Balotelli, of course. And Palois of Bordeaux, 9 yellow cards and 2 red cards for him this season. Iago of Toulouse, an impressive tally of 13 yellow cards for him this season, worth a mention. And very briefly, Bordeaux's coach, Yoslem Gourvenec, signed a new contract today, so he is going to be remaining. And also, Michel Dezakarian has quit Ram of the second division to join Montpellier to be their new manager. So a bit of managerial switch around there. Right, that will wrap us up for France for another season. That will draw a line nicely under there. We are not going to do best the rest of the season. We are just going to tip the hat to 2 more champions, which we didn't mention in last week's show. Anderlecht secured the Belgian title in Belgium, obviously. Set that one up, didn't I? And also Spartak Moscow, champions of Russia, which we didn't cover last week. But apologies to our Russian listeners. Well, at least there must be, one of you out there? Maybe 2. But congratulations to those 2 teams. But in the interest of keeping the show nice and tidy, we're going to finish with your questions. And we're going to whip through the best of this week's Onion Bag. Right, gentlemen, you've got around about 10 minutes or so to plough through these questions, so keep your answers nice and snappy for me. We're going to start with this one from Pat Rainsford, who wants to say, aren't the Champions League sponsors putting pressure on UEFA to have more games on terrestrial TV as they lose out on the targeted audience? John, have you heard anything about this? Is this something that's likely to happen?
I don't. The sponsors might be, but it will make very little difference because the games are still watched all around the world, and there's so much money spent on. Obviously, here in the UK, it's now on BT Sport, and they pay huge sums of money to get that from Sky, the Champions League games. So I think the sponsors can try and put pressure on if they want, but it really will make no difference whatsoever until they start failing to see a return from it, from their investment for sponsoring it. It's not going to make any difference. They keep spending their money; it's fine. So yeah, I don't see any change coming there, to be honest.
No, sadly I don't. It's motivated by money, isn't it, largely? So can't see it changing anytime soon, sadly. This one I'll give to Drew just because we mentioned him already and I know we love him. Quick update, actually, Drew, just very, very quickly. Breaking news, Borussia Dortmund second team coach, Daniel Farke, yes. Just great name. He's going to be the new head coach of Norwich.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that's going in the Huddersfield.
Is there a question? I know Josh actually had a question about it, did he not?
Did he? I haven't seen that. So,
oh, God. He just wanted to know what can we expect. I mean, basically... he was a manager of the under-23s, and their youth project has come a long way. Obviously, it's one of the better in the country. He's had a large hand in that. He worked well with Tuchel in that regard. And with Norwich, as far as I know, they're looking to rely more on their academy instead of purchasing in the market. And if you're going to look for a manager who has experience with that, then Farke will be your man, obviously. And he actually he replaced David Wagner when Wagner went to Huddersfield. So he took up the mantle there. So you'll probably get a similar manager in that regard when it comes to what you're looking for a first team. But he won't be afraid to blood youth. And I think if Norwich are looking to go down that route now as a club, then he's a good appointment for that.
Good shout. And the question I was going to ask you was Alexei Otonen's question about Yuri Tielemans. Said if Monaco can buy him for a reported 20 million euros, surely that's a steal or a robbery. He said, why are top clubs not lining up for him?
Honestly, I think the fact that he's coming from the Belgian league will maybe hurt him a little bit. It's an enigma. Sometimes you'll get a player out of there that comes on and does incredibly well at a higher standard of league. But a lot of the times, as you saw with Jelle Vossen is a recent example. He smashed that league in goals, and then he came to. Didn't he go to? Was it Charlton? Did he go to? I think. I'll have to ask Ross, but and then he was absolutely horrific for them, and then he went right back to Belgium. I think it was 6 months later. So. But Tielemans, for me, I've rated him for a very long time. He was in the Anderlecht first team since he was 16 years old, playing in Europe at the same age. He formed a really good partnership with Dennis Praet there when he was there. His performances against Arsenal in the group stage a couple years ago will give you evidence of just the kind of player he is. I think he suits Monaco. I think he's an excellent player. I think there were bigger clubs interested. I think Chelsea were sniffing around for a little bit. But I think they're looking for more maybe established players. Tielemans is still a project. I think he's going to end up at the highest level of European football, but he's still quite young. So maybe big clubs in one of the top 2 or 3 leagues don't want to take a gamble just yet if they don't want to trust him at the moment. But I think if he goes to Monaco, I give him 2-3 years and he'll go to another club that's bigger. I think he's that good. I think they can expect good things from him if he does go.
I'd guess from that move, like Drew said, there was definitely other clubs looking at him. And I don't think it was a lack of other clubs interested. I think the player seems quite sensible, or at least his agent does, because he looks to me like he's chosen Monaco because he's going to play. Whereas if he went to, say, not that Monaco aren't a big team, but a bigger team, then he won't get as much play time, and he'll actually develop at Monaco. So I think he's made the sensible choice.
It's one of those, isn't it? He's just such a good little player. I mean, I want to see him at Monaco, of course I do. I just don't want to. I don't want to see him wasted wherever he goes. Hopefully he gets games, but yeah, it's one of those. It is one of those. I'm going to give this one to Joel because it's kind of a Premier League question, but you could kind of bleed it into La Liga as well if you wanted, just in the absence of some Spanish questions. Dan Batch wants to know what side in the top 6 of the Premier League needs the most surgery. So you can answer that one as a Premier League fan as well, Joel, but also which club in the top 6 in Spain, or arguably outside of the top 6, Valencia, need the most surgery in that respective league as well?
Premier League, I'd probably go 3 really. They have 3. City, United, and Arsenal, I think, need a lot of work. City in particular.
Completely agree.
Midfielder. So I think they need a lot of work. You can say the same for United, really. I don't think Mourinho has made that much. Well, he hasn't made much an impact, has he? Because they're practically where they were when he took over in the same position. So they need work, and they will spend big. And I think with Arsenal, it's just, you guys know far better than me, it's an ongoing thing. I think they just need players in a number of areas. The same weaknesses that exist that probably did 3 or 4 years ago. But so I'd say those 3. In La Liga, I think we've covered it earlier. I'd say Barcelona need element of work in the squad. Not so much the starting 11, but the squad needs to be a lot deeper. So if you're looking at building a squad and some surgery, that's required. And I think Sevilla, think of the top 6 in Spain. The Sevilla needs some work as well because they need to progress from where they're at. They do trade heavily in the summer always, and they'll probably do the same. And then moving down the league, Valencia, as you rightly said, will need work, but they've got a good margin out of Marcelino to be able to do it if they just give him some time and some money and some patience as well. The fans need to be patient. I think Marcelino will get things right at Valencia. So I think that answers it from both leagues' perspectives. I think one thing for certain, the Premier League clubs will have a lot of money to spend, whereas the Spanish clubs will be looking to trade and move players out. I think even Barcelona are restricted in what they can do. They need to sell before they can buy, which is complete contrast to the EPL, considering, as we know, the TV money now is just so vast. They could really be pulling away for the EPL, I think, at some point, because, like we've discussed on the group, even the bottom tier in the Premier League now gets 150 million, is it? 120 million? So
I think it is, yeah.
Absolutely massive.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's just so many clubs across Europe. When you look at it, so much work needs to be done on so many different clubs at so many different levels. It's hard to know how on earth they're gonna work things around. But that'll be something we'll cover in the summer, of course. Another quick one here for you, John James at Lossless. How will Allegri deploy Lewandowski, Griezmann, and Mbappe in attack next season? He says, "I'm really bad with serious questions." In all seriousness, though, is there any strengthening for Juventus up front? Because they're pretty much sorted, aren't they, really?
Talk is that Patrick Schick looks like he might be signing, possibly has agreed terms already. That's the rumour going round. Whether he goes straight into the team or not, I'm not sure. He might be loaned back to Samp. I don't think they really need too much up front. I think the big thing will be defence, because Barzagli is 36. So Regani's obviously there, who's highly thought of, who will come in, but is Benatia staying? All these kind of players. Fullback, Dani Alves has been amazing this season, but how long can he keep going? I think Lichtsteiner's time at the club is probably coming up, so they may be looking at another right back, which is where De Sciglio maybe comes in from Milan. Maybe a midfielder. There's talk of Lamina and a few others leaving. Asamoah maybe goes out of the club, so a bit more of an adventurous midfielder to go in there, possibly someone a bit younger. But I don't think there's going to be too many ins and outs at Juve. I'm sure there'll be some random, player who's out of contract who gets signed by them that we've all completely missed, and we all go, how the hell did they do that yet again?
Just real quick, how close are the comparisons that people are making with Patrick Schick to Pavel Nedved, or is that completely unfounded?
He's got the ability, in terms of dribbling and being a man. He really can do that, and it's more for his age. It's the typical things like decision making, when to shoot, when to make the pass, that kind of thing. Some of them are a little bit overhit or underhit. His style, his running style is different, but I can see it in the way he takes people on. He's very confident when he's on the ball and he's quite direct. So he's got that kind of Nedvedness about him. But it's Nedved who's been doing all the talks.
Yeah, good player. I know you rate him very highly, so wanted to keep an eye on. One word answer from you all to this question, which comes in from... Oh, I've lost it already. Where's it gone? I'm sure it was Bobby. Yes, Bobby Chakraborty. Who wins the Champions League final? For me, Juventus. John?
I hope Juve.
Joel?
Yeah, hope Juve, and I think it will be Juve as well.
I thought you might say that. Drew, full house?
Juve, actually, yeah, I think so.
Good times, the old lady come forth.
I'm sorry, Mike Folletti, if we've cursed you.
Yeah, sorry, Mike. Yeah, absolutely. This one for Drew. This is another quick one. I think this might be an Arsenal-based one somehow. Bobby also wants to know about a certain Nigerian being linked with a move to Arsenal.
Onyekuru, yeah.
Yes, Belgian league, I believe.
Yeah, he played for Eupen. He had 12 goals in the league. Everyone was reading the tweets about the reports that were coming out, and they were assuming that meant he was the leading scorer of the Belgian league. No, that was Todorchuk at Anderlecht, so don't get your head in a bunch just yet. But he's a decent young player. He's got some pace. He's agile. He's technically able, but he's very undersized. I think he's 5'9", not very big, and he's not actually a striker. I think he played twice at striker all season. He actually played left and right side of their attacks. So for me, I spoke to Philip Simmons a little bit more about it as well, and he was saying that he feels that because Philip actually coaches and lives in Belgium now, he saw him a few times and said that he genuinely felt like he'd be 2 or 3 years away from a first team spot at Arsenal. And I just think the business is smart. Like if you look at, we already have Takuma Asano, Alex Iwobi, and Jeffrey Adelaide as attacking projects for younger players. So why do you need a fourth one in the club? To me, it just doesn't make any sense. I think it's poor business. I think Arsenal are at the point now where they really need ready-made first-team players to come in and take the first team forward and really try to push back and get back in the Champions League spots and maybe challenge for the league. I don't think they need to be wasting time on more young projects trying to create stars. I think they need ready-made top players ready to help them push on.
Unless, of course, they're shipping Yo-Yo Sonogo out and he's the one to come in to replace that squad place, I suppose. But, I mean, to be honest, I'd put John in the squad ahead of Sonogo at the moment. So, yeah, not exactly a great one. This is another quick fire one, and then we're going to finish with a question which I'm going to give to Joel. Jimmy, our good friend Ananguna. Jimmy, I hope you enjoyed Chicago Fire's fantastic 1-0 victory at your place at DC United on Saturday. Love you, Jimmy. He wants to ask, and you can have one club only, and it's a one-word answer from you all. I've got a question. He says, why did I let you assholes talk me into choosing hipster teams to follow in European leagues? Which is a great thing. So the one answer I'm going to ask you all to give me one club that Jimmy can follow that he isn't already following next season. So you can just pick anyone you like. John, you can have one from Italy. Who can Jimmy join in Italy now?
Napoli. Much more exciting than Inter.
Much better than Inter, yeah, I agree. Joel, who can he follow in Spain?
Let's go Valencia because there's an upward motion, so they're going to go on the upward Marcelo. So let's go Valencia. It'll be fun, no matter what. We'll sack the manager by the end.
I was going to say.
So yeah, let's go Valencia.
As soon as Jimmy starts supporting them, they'll turn into Inter in no time. Trust me. And Drew, who's he going to follow in Germany?
So he's going to ditch Leverkusen then? Is that the case? Honestly, I feel like I know they're not as hated as Leipzig, but they're pretty. I don't know. People don't look at them in a good light, but I think Hoffenheim, because of the Nagelsmann project and what they're doing, I don't know, pretty revolutionary from a certain standpoint. So they'd be a good watch.
Fair enough. And I think Jimmy's following. I think he follows Lyon in France, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm going to take you Lyon, and I'm going to raise you Lille for obvious reasons. It's Bielsa, isn't it? I mean, you've got to. Although I think Marseille will be worth keeping an eye on as well, given what they're going to probably do this summer. So there you are, Jimmy. There's another batch of teams for you to follow that will no doubt end in tears, and you can blame us for 12 months' time. So happy days. Final question then I'm going to give to Joel. It's from our good friend Tom at 5 Star Flips. Check out his blog. You know the drill, people. Who in your respective leagues, or in this case La Liga, would you say have been the standout, overperforming and underperforming teams, and what do you think are the main reasons for them doing so? Sorry to be a pain, but you've only got 2 minutes on this, so have a go at that for me.
Overperforming has to be Ibar, just because of the budget is like the lowest, and they consistently overperform. So I think they finished 10th. It's just fantastic. Where they've come from, and the fact they're going to get 5,000 to a game. So that is just phenomenal. And then underachievement. Well, there's only one as underachievement. It's Barcelona, because their aim is to win the league, and if they don't win the league, it's disaster. So I know that's a really straightforward answer, but I think that is an underachievement considering the way they've played and fallen away. I think Atletico Madrid for the first part of the season as well, massively underachieved. And I keep saying it, but if you look at their form from Christmas onwards, they could have really challenged for the league. So I think that is underperforming. Yeah, I'd go with that. And I suspect Ibar will pretty much do the same again as well, because they've just got a really good manager and a really good way of playing. And I think they've got a really good recruitment as well. So I kind of see them overperforming again. Anything above than relegation is overperforming for me.
Perfect response. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Okay, super. Well, that will conclude our show. I will just drop this little nugget of Easter egg, if you will, at the end of the credits to this show. Stay tuned. That's all I'm going to say. But you might have a little bit of something extra if you stay tuned at the end of our music, which I know our music divides opinion, but sorry, boys and girls, it's going to stay, because it took me ages to decide what music to use after the Overlords band Metallica. So yes, we're sticking with it. But that will do us for this bumper edition of the sort of final podcast official, if you will, of the season. Thank you so much for all of our listeners, and indeed on behalf of myself to John, to Joel, and to Drew. Joel, obviously you joined us halfway through the season. You're now one of the family, and Drew and John, well, you just have to be here because you've been here since the start. So I want to personally thank you both for your commitments, and of course to our other team behind the scenes, Kat and Var, for their designing work, and of course Kelly for the Hipster's Choice hard work she puts into there. Gaz deserves no credit whatsoever because he just presses buttons, and we've proven
he goes to Vegas all the time on holiday.
Well, I mean, the fact that you were able to do it, John, just proves that he's largely completely pointless to us all. But
never leave, Gaz. Anyway. Never leave.
Never go. And of course, our thanks to our other team on the English Breakfast Show as well, which Joel's a part of it. Josh and Ross, superb as ever. And a little nod to Danny, who's not been around as much as he probably would have liked to this season because of other commitments and general laziness. But he's still one of us.
And James as well, of course.
And James, of course, yes.
He's probably around as nearly as little as Danny is at the moment, but
absolutely,
yeah, very busy.
But again, work commitments, and we'll be getting James back, I'm sure, next season. So don't worry, he'll be back. And of course, all our bloggers and you, the listeners. Without you, we probably still do this in truth because, we like football, we like talking to each other about it. But we do appreciate all of you, all the new Twitter followers, all the YouTube, SoundCloud, and iTunes subscribers, all the reviews, all the blogs, anyone that's done a blog for us this year, and anyone, even if you sent us abuse, we still love you. So thank you all very, very much. We hugely appreciate it. And of course, I will wrap up with those immortal words. Until our specials over the summer, which I did tease at the start of the show, we will be doing some specials over the summer. We'll be doing a full review of all of our leagues for our individual hipsters, a full review of the FA Cup final and playoff final on the next English Breakfast, and some specials with some guests throughout the summer, which we have yet to book, but I can tell you we're looking at some very cool people to speak to and some pretty big names as well. So stay tuned until then. But until then, and of course until you get to listen to the special Easter egg, our thanks to classicfootballshirts.co.uk for their partnership, and to all of you. So thank you very much to my panellists, to John, to Drew, and to Joel. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Cheers, Chris.
Cheers, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And until Drew smiles again, I'll say the immortal words: keep your beers strong and your glasses trendy. Thank you to you all very, very much. Keep enjoying your football, even if there's none on TV. Dig out some DVDs. Until next time, we've been the Football Hipsters. We'll speak to you very soon.
Hello listeners, so this is the little bonus Easter egg that Chris spoke about. He'll be talking in a minute, but our little bonus is our personal best 11s of the season from our respective leagues. We were sort of talking about it during the pod as we were recording in our little chat box, and frantically trying to work out who was our picks for the team. So Joel, as you are the new man to the pod, I think we'll let you go first. What is your 11, and why did you pick those players for La Liga this season?
Okay, so the 11 is playing a 4-3-3 formation. So in goal, I've gone for Senio from Villarreal. Did get injured about 3/4 of the way through the season, but he still makes it in because he was absolutely superb before that. It's actually his third or fourth cruciate ligament injury that he sustained. So he could have had such a better career as well. He's done so well, but he could have just been absolute great. He could have stayed injury free, but he makes it in goal. The back four that I've gone for Carvajal at right back. I've gone for PK at centre half. I've gone for Umtiti at centre half, and I've gone for Marcelo left back. Now, to completely contradict myself about Barcelona being defensively awful and to pick two, I will explain myself there. So PK has just been superb all year, and none of the frailties that Barcelona have shown defensively I would put at PK's door. And from TT, he's done really well in the transition from Lyon to Barcelona, and he's made himself in the kind of the starting 11 above Mascherano, which I didn't think he would do. I thought he'd play as a third centre half, but he's actually established himself, and he's been really good in whatever he's done, basically. So they would be my two centre halves. You can't look past Real Madrid's fullbacks. It's such a massive part of the play. Carvajal, as much as I don't really like him as a what you can see as a person, he's just felt superb at right back defensively and going forward. And then Marcelo, I think, is probably the best fullback in the world, I'd say at the minute. Maybe people disagree with that, but I think he's just superb. He epitomises everything you want from modern fullback. And I think one thing I've noticed in the last couple of years is defensively he's massively improved. So adding in the fact that he's just as good going forward, and I think the Champions League against Bayern at home, he was absolutely superb for Madrid. So he makes it into left back. The midfield three, I've gone for Toni Kroos. You can't ever look past Toni Kroos, even though he plays for Madrid. I just admire everything that he does. So calm on the ball. His stats are fantastic, and his stats are fantastic for passes forward as well. I think you can look at pass completion, and people will pass backwards a lot and get the stats up, but he's somebody who's playing constantly into the striker's feet or diagonals, so he makes it in. He's the metronome for that team, and Modric is superb. Either side of Kroos, I've gone for Steven Nzonzi, ex-Blackburn, ex-Stoke, superb. For Sevilla, another great season. Highly thought of. I wouldn't be surprised if Sevilla field offers, particularly from Man City, for him around 30 to 40 million quid.
Yeah.
Superb player. Epitomises the modern kind of midfield. He's got a lot to his game, box to box, but also positionally great and tactically great, and great on the ball. And then the third midfield, I've gone for Chigueras from Villarreal. Ex-Barca, so he kind of look out for him a lot, but just superb. I think there's talk of him going back to Barca at some point to take Iniesta's place. He's got everything to his game, crucial for Villarreal, keeps the ball, scores goals, really, really good player, so he makes it in the midfield three. And then the front three, I kind of changed it halfway through. So I went for obviously clearly Messi, Neymar on the other side, because I think he's been his best season at Barca. His stats might not show it in terms of goals, but he's all-round playing. Amount of chances he's created his way up on other seasons, and he's become a lot more disciplined defensively. So I've gone for Neymar. And then I did put Ronaldo in, and then I kind of thought about what Kris said about the stats. Suarez's assists are up, his goals are up. And I do remember Ronaldo in the start of the season wasn't banging as many goals as he's done the last 5 games, so I think it was slightly clouded. So I've gone for the MSN up front, which is probably biased. I'm going to get criticised for that. But I just feel them three are just superb, and I think they give everything for the team. And I think as a three, they're superb. But I just feel you can't leave Suarez out. Although you can't really leave Ronaldo out, but I've done it because I can't play 4 up front.
Yeah, no, I do not envy you trying to pick the front three from that league, because this is so difficult, because you're going to have to leave someone out. So yeah, I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 people who will disagree with you, but yeah, you're not going to get too many arguments from me. Don't worry about that. Any sort of honourable mentions who were another season would have made it?
Yeah, completely. So, like Oblak in goal, I think Diego Godin, even put Ramos into that bracket, Modric. Isco has been really good, but not in the league. He's been better in the Champions League. And I think Griezmann is really unlucky to not make it in as well, considering he's had another great season for Atleti. So I think they're the people who kind of have missed out, but it's so difficult, isn't it? You know. So I'll go with that. I'll probably get criticised for having how many 1, 2, 5 Barcelona players in there, but I have got 4 Real Madrid, so I've kind of balanced it.
It's good, mate. It's good. Drew, obviously you've been away for most of the season with the pod, so me and Kris have tried our best to do the Bundesliga justice, but who have been your picks for the Bundesliga this season?
It's pretty difficult in a lot of positions, but I actually went with Oliver Baumann in goal. I know that everyone always talks about Manuel Neuer, and Bernd Leno at Leverkusen, despite their poor season, was pretty good. But for me, Baumann, again, I was talking to Koresh about this. Koresh and I now speak basically daily about all things German, and we both agreed that Baumann, if you look past Neuer and maybe you have Ter Stegen obviously and Leno, but Baumann is arguably the best goalkeeper in the league, especially this season. So I gave it to him. Back 4 is Jonas Hector, Benjamin Ubner, Willy Orban, and Fredrik Sorensen. So the left and right back are both from SD Koln, and I think that both those 2 played a very large part as to why they gained promotion. Not promotion, they gained the European place. Koln were, for large parts of the season, they were so good as a defensive unit. Benjamin Ubner came from Ingolstadt last season after helping them secure a place for a second year in the Bundesliga, and he went to Hoffenheim on an £800,000 move. And for me, I think he's been the best center back in the Bundesliga this season. And in regards to Willy Orban, he's just an all-around very good center back. Flew under the radar for large portions before this season. And I think he was just a rock for them throughout. And I think RBL had the 3rd best defensive record during the year, even without a massive standout goalkeeper. But I think Orban's a large part of that. Midfield three, I went with Thiago Alcantara, Naby Keita, and Kerem Demirbay. Simply put, Thiago is basically Xavi reincarnate, and I think this season showed that he's going to take up that mantle. Very, very like for like with him. Hopefully he takes his performances for Bayern, and then the Spanish national team will be hoping for similar performances. Naby Keita in his debut season in the league was brilliant by all accounts, and from everything I've seen of him, and that's why he's being linked to clubs like Liverpool and Arsenal and big clubs around Europe because of how good he has been just after one season. And then Demirbay came into another Hoffenheim signing in the summer for very little money, and he was a key midfield piece for Nagelsmann, and I think his stats reflect that 6 goals and 8 assists. He's absolutely immense for them through the middle. And the front three, some people might disagree, but obviously Emil Forsberg makes it. He led Europe in assists with 19, so I think that speaks for itself. Ousmane Dembele on the right, again, such a good young player. Came in the league, took it by storm. Big things expected for him from a lot of people. I think Kris can be one of those as well. And the striker, I went with a little bit of bias, but Aubameyang. I think if you score 31 goals, you should be in the team of the year. Simple as that. But you could have said Lewandowski. You probably easily could have said Anthony Modeste as well, because he scored half of Koln's goals this season, and without him, they probably wouldn't be in fifth place. So, but with Aubameyang instead, so that's the team.
Yeah, very nice. I take it most of the honourable mentions, quite a few of them are Bayern Munich players. Arjen Robben, I guess,
I try to stick. This is the hipster podcast, so I try to keep it slightly hipster and not just throw out Bayern players. But obviously a lot of the Bayern players showed up. Robben maybe returned the clock back. Both of them were excellent. You probably could have said Xabi Alonso for large parts of the season. He was fantastic. Philipp Lahm was as good as ever as right back, but. I tried to not just make it a Bayern show because quite frankly, I'm tired of that. So.
Very fair, very fair.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through my 11 now. This is very strange.
So it's all strikers then, right? Just strikers on the team?
I was really struggling to do this because I was like, yep, there's my strikers. Then I'd look down the list and go, oh, hang on a minute, I've missed out a guy who's got 25 and the season's not over yet. So I'll start at the back. I've got Wojciech Szczesny in goal. Not biased because I'm an Arsenal fan, but he's just been outstanding this season. These 2 years in Rome have really done him well, and he's just a lot more confident now. His shot-stopping ability has always been fantastic, but he's now coming out, taking crosses at the right time and taking the right action, and he's been superb for Roma, and a team that, he's kept, I think, more clean sheets than anyone else in the league. He hasn't conceded a goal from outside his box, and a team like Roma, who do give up opportunities for the other team, because when they push forwards, they do throw a lot of bodies up there. He's tested quite a bit, so he's really impressed me this year. Then we've got Conti and Caldara. I had to go for a back four, so this is very strange. So I wanted to do the 3-5-2, but yeah, back four. So the fullbacks have got Alexandro one side and Conti the other. Sandro just speaks for himself. He's absolutely been amazing for Juventus. He's made maybe 2 mistakes I've seen all season, and in typical Juve fashion, he got absolutely torn to pieces for it on the pitch by his fellow teammates. But he's been brilliant. He's added a real dimension to him going forward. He's developed a fantastic relationship with Mandzukic in front of him. Defensively, I think he's improved over the season, and he's shown what he can deliver as well in terms of goals from that position. Conti on the other side, obviously, like Sandro, plays more of a wing back than anything else at Atalanta, but scored so many goals this year from that position, which is really impressive. And in that team that's just really thrown up some big surprises, great results. Really excited to see what they can do in Europe next season. He's got 8 goals from that full wing-back position, which is really impressive. Only 23 years old, so really bright future ahead of him. As for the 2 centre-backs, I've gone for one of Conti's teammates, Caldara, the man who is a Juve player but is on loan at Atalanta. 4 goals for a centre-back, 23 years old. Physically imposing, great on the ball. His passing range is fantastic. Brings the ball out from the back very confidently. Juve have signed a real talent there. And next to him I've put Leonardo Bonucci, who, for me, I think is probably the best centre-back in the world right now. Just amazing what he can do. His reading of the game is fantastic. He's got great recovery. Obviously he plays in amazing defence, which does help, but Some of the tackles you see him make and the decision he makes on the ball is excellent. His passing is unreal, and he's got a real eye for goal as well. So that was my back five. In midfield, like Drew, I tried to mix it up a little bit and try not to pick too many of the obvious names. I went for Zielinski from Napoli, who's had a fantastic season. Really impressed me with the things he's been doing. The goals he's got in that Napoli side to come in and displace the midfield they already had in there is so impressive. And his ability and his vision on the ball for someone so young, he's really impressed me, and I'll be surprised if Napoli can keep hold of him for long, because he looks good enough to me to be playing for one of the big boys like a Real Madrid or something in the future. So he's been really impressive. Next to him is a bit of an old head, Lucas Biglia from Lazio, who kind of a bit of an unsung hero there. Does a lot of the dirty work, but his decision making, his experience in the team has really helped propel them up the league, helped get them to the Coppa Italia final. He's got that captain's material. You can see why Lionel Messi always talks about playing with him in the Argentinian national team, because just his intelligence on the ball is really impressive. So just a great midfielder there. So I've done this in a sort of 4-3-3. I kind of cheated a little bit with positions. I've got Papu Gomez from Atalanta in at the number 10. Again, another player who's had an amazing season, broke out, got himself into the national team. When you think of the forwards that Argentina have got to pick from, it's really impressive. 15 goals, the amount of assists this guy's got. Atalanta, I really hope they can keep hold of him, because absolutely everyone in Italy is sniffing around him, trying to sign him. Roma, Inter, Milan, Napoli all want to get their claws into him. And I don't know what it is with being in Italy, but just a tiny little short man player just playing behind the strikers does something for me. It's really exciting. And then I got to the strikers. This was really difficult. I played it 4-3-3 because I kind of cheated a little bit. So I've got Dybala one side. I don't know what you can say about this kid. It's just unbelievable. The things he's done in the league, the goals he's got, the assists, the free kicks, his decision making, the way he carries the ball, the stuff he's done in the Champions League. He's been Juventus' real superstar forward, and kind of taken the pressure off Gonzalo Higuain a little bit as well. Formed a really good partnership with him. Again, the difference you can see now at Juve, being able to keep that kind of player, not having to sell them, is incredible. And I think the fact that he's pushed the team on after just his first year is really impressive. I've put Dries Mertens on the other side because I couldn't play him through the middle. I couldn't not have him. Unbelievable. That was supposed to be his position, but he's rediscovered himself as a striker and just scoring goals for fun. Over 30 goals already this season. Still got a chance at the Capocannoniere as well, which would be unbelievable for a player who hasn't played all season up front as a striker, and at times has been dropped out of the squad and just kind of got put in there because Napoli had no one else. Really impressive season from him. And then last through the middle, I had to go with Edin Dzeko. He's leading the goal scoring. He's got this kind of habit now of being at a club first season, not really doing it, but this year he really has. 28 goals in the league already, a load more in the Europa League. He's adding assists. His all-round play has been fantastic, and it's not just what you might expect from him in terms of goals, of tap-ins and headers. He's scored some absolute belting goals. And it really does make me question why other clubs didn't go in for him when Roma signed him, because he's really shown that I think he's still got it and could be playing. Obviously, he will be playing for a Champions League club, but could be playing for slightly a more competitive one. In terms of other notables, obviously Belotti was the big one who missed out. There just wasn't enough places for him, to be perfectly honest. There was Frank Kesse as well from Atalanta, a lot of players from there. Keita Balde as well from Lazio. Khedira and Pjanic at Juventus. You can also look at Chiellini, Buffon, obviously. Plenty of players. I just didn't have enough room for everyone. And I think now we just have in time for Kris to give us his 11.
Hello. I'm back. Yes. Well, I've had to throw mine together. I apologise. I haven't had anywhere near as much planning as you fine people, because I'm the host, so I don't get a chance to do these things, do I? So am I allowed to get those excuses out the way first?
Yeah, of course you are. That's fine.
Okay, good.
Drew didn't have Robin, so he's going to get pelters for that.
Well, I'm going to try. I'm going to try and construct a team that's, as you say, I don't know if you guys have done the same, but I don't just want to pick Monaco and PSG players because it's a bit obvious, isn't it? So, okay, have we got a formation we're sticking to, or can I pick what I want?
You can pick whatever you want. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go 4-3-3 then, just so I can kind of crowbar a few of these people in. And I'll warn you in advance, some of these players are playing out of position, but I don't care. So the goalkeeper I've gone for is Johan Pelé of Olympique Marseille. Some people might be a bit surprised about this one, but he's kept a number of clean sheets this season. I think he's actually a record in Europe. I think I read somewhere this week. He's a bit of an unsung hero for me, but at 34 years of age, I think he's 15 clean sheets. I think he's kept this season. He's been absolutely brilliant, and in a team that like Marseille, who've gone through so many ups and downs this season, have been kind of all over the place and then quite good. I think it's fair that we give him a little nod. Kind of honourable mention to Stéphane Ruffier and Johan Cardinal from St Etienne and Nice, respectively. Both very, very good goalkeepers, but I'm going to go with Pelé. So that's my choice at centre back. The full back positions. This was really difficult because I really, really wanted to pick the lad at Nice, whose name forgets me, Pereira, who's on loan from Porto. But I couldn't overlook the two Monaco fullbacks, so I have had to kind of revert to type on this one. So it's Benjamin Mendy of Monaco and Djibril Sidibe of Monaco on the right and left fullback positions. I mean, what more could be said, really? Both attacking fullbacks, both fantastic fullbacks. Pace, energy, power, goal threat. I mean, everything you'd want from a modern day fullback position. So yeah, I do feel bad for Pereira because he's been absolutely fantastic in that Nice side, but I couldn't overlook him. So overlook those two Monaco fullbacks. I've gone with those two. Centre backs. This is another difficult one. I've not gone for the obvious. The obvious would be Kamil Glik of Monaco, who definitely gets a vote because he's again been fantastic. John, you'll know all about him from his Torino days, proper rugged centre half. But I've overlooked him. I've also overlooked Dante, who's been brilliant for Nice since coming in, which I don't think anyone would have said pre-season. I've gone for the rather interesting duo of Christophe Julien of Toulouse and Malang Sarr of Nice. Malang Sarr is only 17 years of age. He's one of those players that got his shirt without a name on this season. He's come in. He's had a few shaky spots here and there throughout the season, but for a 17-year-old, he's been absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to go with him. And the equally youthful Julien. Just absolute rock. Really, really is a fantastic talent and a real prospect for the future. He's I think he's 1 meter 96. I think I read somewhere, which is quite large for a centre back. But he's not just kind of brawn. He's got a lot of brains. He's very, very good on the ball. Likes to bring the ball out from the back. Reminds me, dare I say it, of a young Rio Ferdinand without the terrible TV show. So I'm gonna go with him for the centre back position. Now, the three in midfield, this is where it gets a little bit sticky because there's just so many players I could pick. In the centre, I've gone with Jean-Michel Seri of Nice. And for those of you who don't know what I've said previously, I'll just repeat it again. For me, he's been the best player in Liga this season. I know that's a controversial statement with your Cabanis and your Silvers and all those who go alongside it, but he's just been absolutely brilliant. Just so much pace, power, strength. He's a leader. He wins balls back. He distributes well from deep positions or a goal threat running onto things. He's just a wonderful little player, and much like Mendy, who went to Leicester in the summer and then, of course, got injured, I'm going to be absolutely gutted when he ends up signing for probably someone like Newcastle in the summer. No offence to Newcastle fans, but I just have this horrible feeling that he's going to be criminally wasted this season when, for me, he's easily good enough to play for one of the top 6 teams in the Premier League. Again, that's just my opinion. But Jean-Michel Seri gets the vote for me in the centre of the park, which means I have to pick two kind of wide players. So, John, you'll be disappointed that Marco Verratti does not make pick my lineup.
You're a disgrace.
I know. I'm trying to go full hipster here, so I'm going to go with Morgan Sanson of Marseille. We mentioned in the podcast in general that he's the top assisting player this season for Marseille. Since signing, he was one of those signings that went a little bit under the radar when he arrived from Montpellier. I always thought he was a very good player, but I wasn't quite sure sort of at what level he could perform. He's been fantastic, really, really has. He's brought them on another level, and Florian Thauvin will get a lot of the plaudits this season because he's equally been very, very good. But towards the latter stages of the season, I think Sanson has been consistently very, very good throughout this season. So he's going to get my vote. As far as one of the wide positions go. Now, this is where it gets a little bit complicated because the other player I'm going to pick in midfield, and again, I'm going to have to apologise for lots of people here. Notable absentees from this lineup. Tiémé Bakayoko, of course, because A, he's not a wide player, and B, I don't want to pick all the Monaco team. I'm also going to leave out, I'm going to leave out Bernardo Silva. It's criminal to say it. I don't know, maybe I'll crowbar him in up front, but for now I'm going to leave him out. I'm also going to leave out Tony Lamar, and I'm going to leave out Fabinho. So it is sacrilege, but I'm going to go for Corentin Tolisso of Lyon. Not been a stellar season for Lyon by any stretch of the imagination, but when you're being linked with clubs like Barcelona, like Real Madrid, like Juventus, maybe less so Arsenal, but Tolisso has been a stand-up performer for Lyon this season, and in a season where you've seen the likes of Fekir sort of go backwards a little bit and never quite found his form after injury. I'm going to give him the nod, so I'm going to pop Tolisso. He's not a wide player, but I'm going to have to crowbar him in somehow. So maybe I'll play a flat three in midfield. So he gets my vote. One also notable mention for Francois Camano of Bordeaux, who signed from Bastia last summer. You might remember he's been equally brilliant this season, but just misses the cut, which leaves me with a front three. I'm pretty sure you might know who two of them might be. I'm going to say that much. John, you're going to love this. In fact, I'm sure Joel and Drew are going to love this as well. My central striker is Cavani. He's been
Sorry,
can
you say that again? I didn't quite hear that.
Cavani.
It isn't Cavani. Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, him. Yeah, I mean, even I can't leave him out of this team of the season. I mean, for all the criticism I give him, he has been brilliant this season. There's no denying it. So obviously, top scorer in France, weighs in with his fair share of assists and indeed stops at times. But no, he is clearly stand away centre forward for PSG and in France this season. And to be fair to him, he's come into his own since Zlatan left, and I did wonder whether he'd be able to make the step up. There is still an argument for his conversion rate, which I had to throw in there, but no, he does have to make the lineup as a central striker, and he's going to be flanked by two attacking wingers / forwards. And Kylian Mbappe is, of course, going to be one of those because it's Kylian Mbappe. I mean, what have we not said all season? He's been absolutely brilliant from start to finish. He didn't, of course, make the lineup at the start of the season. He was very much the player that might get a few games here and there, but when he got his chance, boy, did he take it. And he has been absolutely fantastic this whole season. So I'm going to slide him into the lineup. As far as the other wide forward / striker / hybrid kind of wide forward-ish thing, I like to call it the Alexis or Mandzukic role, whichever you prefer. Again, I am going to leave out Lamar. I tried, but I can't quite crowbar him in. And it came down to two strikers. You might be surprised by one of these two, striker / wide forwards. I was very, very close to going full hipster and picking Loïs Diony of Dijon, who a lot of people who don't listen to me wang on every week will have no idea who he is. He's been brilliant this season, and without his goals, I'm not sure Dijon would have stayed up, to be perfectly honest. He really has taken his game to another level. I think it will probably earn him a nice move somewhere up the table. I'm not quite sure how high, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got a move to one of the top 6. Also, a notable mention to Nicolas de Preville, which I'm sure Ross will be nodding along to at Lille. He's gone on another level this season, 14 goals and 30 appearances for Lille. So he just misses out. And also, sorry, lots of honourable mentions. But until his injury, Alessandro Player at Nice was also fantastic. But I couldn't disappoint the loyal listeners. My completion of the lineup goes to Alexandre Lacazette, who, yes, despite Lyon not having the most brilliant season in the French top flight or indeed in Europe, disappointing end to their European campaign to Ajax. But again, 25 plus goals this season, 28 in total, plenty of assists. He's led by example. He has been Lyon through and through. I think the emotion when he came off at the weekend at the Stade Lumiere Stadium, I think it was very clear that he's really going to miss French football if indeed he leaves this summer, which, well, he will leave. It's a question of whom he goes to. So a proper centre forward or a player who can play wide, and just a really good, solid, quality centre forward or quality striker for me. So he completes the lineup. I can't remember, John, did you pick a manager? Did you have managers for your sides?
Oh, no, we didn't do that, no.
Okay, well, I mean, it would be Jardim if I had one, but I shall say that. I think that pretty much covers it for me. No other major notable people. I know Joel and Drew will probably sat there, and as indeed you probably haven't gone, oh, why didn't I pick so-and-so? So I'm sure there'll be players I've left out. I'm sure a lot of people will be banging their heads on the radio. Radio? What is this, 1995? But I don't know. Is there anybody that you guys think I've left out that you would be having a case for?
I don't think so. I think.
Maybe Di Maria.
Yeah.
Second half, Draxler as well. Second half of the season, but not first
but I
half
think
of the season. He was awful. Di Maria.
I think you've tried to go full hipster like the rest of us tried to do. I think there's no point in, just like you say, just naming off Monaco and PSG players because it's boring.
Yeah.
So.
If you look at the teams of the seasons across our leagues, I always like to look up players that are not heralded but have had very good seasons, lower end. Even players like Santini at Koln, he's had a brilliant season, but won't get the recognition. Steve Mooney is another one. There's a lot of players that haven't quite made the grade in what you class as the end of season awards, but no, I think it's always nice if you can pick them, and we should probably set a hipster rule moving forwards that as of next season you're only allowed one player per club. I think that's a new rule we need to employ. So.
That's fair. I only had one Bayern player, so there you go. Take a wild guess who it was.
Oh, one Bayern player.
Yeah.
Is it Lewandowski?
Nope.
No. Okay. Was it Neuer? Thiago Alcantara. Oh, what a wonderful player. Well, there you go. To break the fourth wall, listeners, you might have noticed I didn't start this extra piece of the podcast. I've come in late because I had to sneak off.
Don't ruin the magic.
Sorry, but I will be interested to hear your teams when I listen back to this wonderful piece of audio. So yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. But thank you, John, for taking the reins for our extra piece of podcasting at the end here.
That's quite all right. So there you go, listeners. That was our little bonus extra for you. As Kris said in the regular part of the pod, we will have some pods out over the summer, some sort of more in-depth season reviews and the such. And obviously, you've got the English Breakford's Cup reviews and stuff to look forward to as well. But there you go. What do you think of our 11s? Tweet us. Probably best to tweet the pod account and not our personal ones because we don't really want that much abuse because we know we're going to get it for the players that we've all left out.
And of course, your timeline, my timeline, and Drew's timeline in particular are full of lots of people shouting a lot at the moment, John. So
yeah. In particular, Joel's maybe not as much as ours, but yeah.
No.
Ours is quite heavy shouting at the moment, Arsenal related. Yes. But do tweet the pod accounts with your 11s or maybe a combined 11 or something like that. We'll retweet the best ones. But yeah, that was your little bonus extra, listeners. So if this is the last pod you listen to, enjoy your summers. Hopefully it's not. You will listen to some more of our specials during then. But we'll be back again next season.